Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Rival to the CEO by Emily Hayes, narrated by Abby Creighton. Chapter 1. Melanie checked her reflection once more in the mirror. Unsurprisingly, she looked exactly the same as she had 1 minute ago when she had last checked. Still, she couldn't help but check again, just in case a hair was out of place. Melanie loved to always look immaculate, especially so today. A good first impression was important. She had already received the promotion of her dreams, but that didn't mean it couldn't be revoked if her new boss didn't like her. Technically, Vanessa Reese had been her boss for 5 years now, ever since Melanie had begun working for Ardak Enterprises. But up until now, she had been working under managers who reported to the CEO. With her new promotion, Melanie would be working directly under the great Vanessa Reese. To say she was excited was an understatement. Vanessa was an inspiration, and the reason Melanie had joined this company. As an openly gay black woman, Vanessa Reese had had all the cards stacked against her, and yet she had risen up to be one of the most successful women in the industry. Melanie hoped that someday she could achieve half of what Vanessa had. She wasn't even out to anyone except her close friends and family. But even without her sexual orientation in the mix, her skin color alone had ensured that she had to work twice as hard as anyone else to get where she was. Getting somewhere in the business world as a woman was hard. As a black woman, it was doubly hard. As a gay black woman, well, there was a reason she wasn't out to anyone except those she trusted. The elevator opened and Melanie stepped out into the corridor. She strode down to the end where she knew Vanessa's office was located. She knocked twice and waited. "Come in. Melanie Fox, I take it." Melanie gulped. She hadn't realized Vanessa would be this attractive in person. She had seen photos, of course, but they didn't fully encapsulate the aura of power and sensual energy that Vanessa exuded. Melanie wasn't usually attracted to older women, but she was convinced that anyone with eyes, gay or straight, would be attracted to Vanessa. She had long dark hair and high cheekbones. Her eyebrows were impeccably shaped and her breasts were the perfect size, large enough to be noticeably attractive, but not so large to detract from the rest of her appearance. Melanie realized she was staring and forced herself to stop. "Pull yourself together, Melanie." "That's right. Nice to meet you." They shook hands, and Melanie didn't miss the way Vanessa's eyes flicked down her own body. She looked up at Melanie, smiling smugly. "Why don't you sit down?" Melanie sat. She was sure that Vanessa was looking at her cleavage and took advantage of the moment to do the same. Vanessa was wearing a sinfully low-cut top that displayed the smooth tops of her breasts in a way that was unfairly tantalizing. "So, Melanie, tell me about your ideas for your new position." Melanie forced herself to yank her eyes back up to Vanessa's face. She had her notes in her bag, but she'd already memorized what she wanted to say. "I've taken a thorough look at our sales reports. We've already got a good market with the older generation. It's the younger folks who we need to get interested in our products. A lot of our products will actually appeal more to the younger generation if we market them correctly." "I see. How do you think we should do that?" "We've got a lot of billboards and TV adverts currently. Those are great, but I reckon we can scale them back a bit. We need to be focusing more on social media. Get out some Facebook adverts. Send out several tweets a day and start getting a following on Twitter, Instagram. Maybe make some YouTube videos of our best products." Vanessa frowned. "That kind of stuff can be fun, but none of it will actually generate sales. The people who waste half their day on social media aren't the people with the money." "That's not true. Sure, the younger generation has access to less money, but a lot of our products are cheap enough to be affordable to almost everyone. We won't be getting huge bulk orders from our social media sales, but thousands of individual orders still pay the same of one bulk order worth thousands." "You're wrong," Vanessa said flatly. "I appreciate the novelty of the idea, but it's not a road we're going to go down. I want you to work on researching the best spots to purchase more billboards." Melanie couldn't believe what she was hearing. More billboards? After she just told Vanessa that they could scale back on that kind of thing. Was Vanessa even listening to her? "I don't think that's the right direction to go." "Well, I'm the one who gets to decide that, aren't I?" Vanessa's dark brown eyes flashed dangerously. Melanie felt enraged. Why did you hire me then? Melanie was unable to keep the frustration out of her voice. You wanted my ideas. Well, here they are, and you're just dismissing them out of hand. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You watch your tone with me, Melanie Fox. You're my employee, and you'll do as you're told. Melanie found herself on her feet, though she didn't remember standing up. I'm not going to do a shit job because you know fuck all about marketing. You'll do what I tell you to, or you'll regret it. Vanessa was on her feet, too. The air between them was practically crackling with tension. Melanie was seized with a desire to grab Vanessa and kiss her. Maybe if she kissed her hard enough, it would shock Vanessa into listening to her. She was surprised by how aroused she felt. Fighting wasn't a turn-on for her. At least it never had been before. Maybe it was just because Vanessa was so sexy when she was angry. How the hell did you ever get to be CEO? You can't just go dismissing the opinions of people who are masters in their fields. That's just awful business. You don't know everything, Vanessa. You may know more about running a company than me, but I know more about marketing than you, and I'm telling you, this is the way to go. You'd be an idiot not to listen. Do you even realize who you're talking to? I'm your boss. You should show me some respect. Yeah, well, maybe you should act like you deserve it. Be an adult, Vanessa. Your idea sucks. Get over it and listen to what people who actually specialize in this have to say. Don't act like a child and throw all your toys out of the cart because you're not getting what you want. Vanessa's face was getting steadily redder and redder. If you won't do as you're told, then maybe I'll hire someone else who will. Be my guest. I'll happily watch the company stocks fall lower and lower because you put a puppet in marketing who doesn't do anything except parrot your own ideas back at you. Well, that would be a damn sight more useful than your crap ideas. What did you do, get those off some high school project poster? You know damn well that I studied and worked for years to get this position. Why else would you have hired me? Believe me, I'm beginning to have my doubts. Yeah, me too. Because I thought that someone as successful as you would have at least a modicum of sense. But I guess your head is too big already to fit anything else to your thick skull. Vanessa stormed around the desk, and for a moment, Melanie thought that Vanessa might hit her, or maybe kiss her. But Vanessa simply opened the office door. Get out, she snarled. Melanie stalked past her, glowering at Vanessa as she went. Her hands twitched with the desire to grab Vanessa's ass and pull her flush up against Melanie's chest. How would it feel to have Vanessa move against her, making noises of pleasure instead of anger? She hesitated only a moment before forcibly removing her eyes from her stupid boss and striding out. By the time she had gotten back to her office on the floor below, her anger had abated enough to realize just what deep shit she was in. What the hell had Melanie just done? She just shouted at her boss and called her an idiot. Fuck. Melanie had only had this job for less than a day, and she had already screwed it up. Vanessa was probably on the phone to Human Resources to get the paperwork for firing her sent up right now. Melanie wondered if she should go back and apologize. Against her will, her mind served up an image of her going down on Vanessa while Vanessa perched on the edge of the desk. Surely that would earn her forgiveness. No, she had to stop thinking like that. That kind of behavior would only assure her of a sexual harassment suit as well as being fired. That didn't mean she couldn't ask for forgiveness, though. However, asking for forgiveness would mean admitting she was wrong, and Melanie wouldn't do that, because she wasn't wrong. It wouldn't be doing anyone any favors if she appeased Vanessa to the detriment of the company. However, not admitting fault was probably going to get her fired. If it was a choice between sticking to her ideals and losing her job, Melanie would let go of the job. If Vanessa would really fire her for holding true to what she believed, then she wasn't the woman Melanie had thought she was, and Melanie had no interest in working for her. No matter which way she looked at it, she was screwed. Melanie wondered if she should start looking for different jobs, though she wasn't sure what the point would be. She was going to get a terrible reference from Vanessa, which would pretty much tank her chances anywhere else. She had some money saved up, but not enough that she never had to work again. Had she really just tanked her entire future in one moment of lost temper? She couldn't pretend to agree with Vanessa to everyone's detriment, but she could have been nicer about the way she said it. Something about Vanessa just seemed to get under her skin, though. Maybe it was how unfairly attractive Vanessa was, Or perhaps it was the way she just dismissed Melanie's ideas without any consideration. But there was just something about her that rubbed Melanie the wrong way. What a shit show. She let her head fall into her hands and groaned. This was so not how she'd wanted today to go. Chapter 2. If Vanessa wasn't so angry, she would probably be impressed. No one had dared to talk to her like that, to call her out like that in many years. In some ways, it was refreshing. It was more infuriating than refreshing, though. Vanessa itched to grab Melanie's attractively curvaceous hips, bend her over the desk, and fuck her into compliance. Of course, that course of action would only get her sued, but that didn't mean she couldn't fantasize about it. She'd rip Melanie's clothes off and demand Melanie listen to her. When Melanie refused, Vanessa would bend her over the desk, grab the strap-on she kept in her office drawer, and fuck, she was getting wet. Perhaps this wasn't the time for a fantasy like this. Melanie's hand twitched, itching to reach down into her increasingly damp panties and touch herself. But she was at work, and it wasn't the time for such things. She could delve deeper into this fantasy later. Right now, she had work to do. She sighed, sitting back down at her desk. She hadn't gotten angry at anyone like that in a long time, but then, no one had challenged her like that in a long time. She still thought that Melanie was wrong, but Vanessa couldn't help but admire her passion. She reminded Vanessa of a younger version of herself, full of fire and resolve to be the best in her chosen field. Vanessa could use someone like that on staff. Melanie may be misguided, but she clearly cared a lot about her job. As much as Vanessa's anger demanded that Melanie was fired at once, she hadn't gotten to where she was by letting emotions rule her. She had to act reasonably and with the best interests of the company at heart, even when it wasn't what her heart demanded. She pressed the intercom. "Emily, could you come in here, please?" A minute later, Vanessa's sweet, obedient assistant knocked and entered. "What do you need, Vanessa?" "I need you to take a message down to the new head of marketing. Tell her that she's to start researching new billboard locations, and I expect a report on best options on my desk by the end of the week, backed up with reasons, or she can start looking for another job." Emily's eyes widened, but she didn't question the last part of the message. "Of course. I'll tell her at once." Vanessa didn't typically send important messages like this one through Emily, but she didn't trust herself around Melanie right now. Maybe not ever, but certainly not at the moment. If Vanessa put herself in a room alone with Melanie now, and Melanie started acting all defiant again, Vanessa was 100% certain that she would bend Melanie over a desk and fuck her into compliance. By the way Melanie had been looking at her, Vanessa didn't think that such an action would be unwelcomed. But Melanie could still decide to sue later, especially if she and Vanessa continued to clash like they had earlier and she wanted to go for vengeance. No, it was best to keep her distance and keep her hands out of her pants, because once she started, she didn't think she'd be able to stop. Vanessa half expected Melanie to come storming back into her office to protest the instructions, and didn't know whether she was grateful or disappointed when Melanie didn't. Perhaps that was for the best. She didn't think she could survive any more sexual frustration than she was already experiencing. By the time the day was done, Vanessa was no less turned on than she had been since the fight with Melanie. No matter how she tried to distract herself, her stupid arousal just wouldn't go away. She got to her car and realized that she wasn't going to make it home. It was a 25-minute drive through traffic home. No way was Vanessa going to last that long. She checked to see that the parking lot was empty before surreptitiously sticking a hand into her pants. Her panties were soaked through by now, and she gasped as her finger touched her clit. Just the lightest touch had all of her nerves tingling as she thought of what she would do to Melanie Bloody Fox. Vanessa imagined grabbing Melanie by the hips and throwing her down hard over the desk. She would push Melanie's skirt up around her waist and pull her panties down. She closed her eyes, immersing herself in the fantasy. Vanessa pushed 2 fingers right into Melanie's pussy, which was already wet. "If you just listen to me." "No," Vanessa snarled. thrusting her fingers so hard into Melanie's pussy that she pushed Melanie and the desk a few inches forward. "It's time for you to stop talking." Melanie moaned and rocked back against her as Vanessa took her hard and rough. Vanessa pulled out, causing Melanie to whine softly. But Vanessa didn't leave her open and empty for long. She pulled the strap on that she'd never gotten around to taking out of the desk drawer after that fling with the visiting CEO and strapped it around her hips. Melanie was squirming, rocking herself against the desk, probably to get some pressure on her clit. Vanessa nudged Melanie's legs wider apart, and Melanie instantly obeyed the unspoken command. Vanessa took a moment to position the dildo and thrust in. "Fuck, Vanessa!" Vanessa slapped Melanie hard on the ass and appreciated her gasp. "You don't talk. You just take what I give you like a good girl." Melanie tried to say something, but Vanessa drove the breath out of her with one powerful stroke. Melanie scrabbled helplessly against the desk, rutting her hips into the hard edge that Vanessa was sure was digging right into her clit. Vanessa kept pounding into Melanie, drawing closer and closer to her own release. She didn't often come herself this way, but she could feel the leather of the strap-on harness tight against her clit, and she felt like Melanie was going to pull that reaction out of her. She was becoming more and more sure with every passing moment. "I'm going to come, Vanessa. Shit. I'm going to come all over your desk." "Not yet, you're not. You come when I say so, and I say you need to wait for me to come first." "I can't. Shit, I can't hold it, Vanessa. You better hurry up or— Oh, fuck. I'm coming right now. Right fucking now, Vanessa." Vanessa cried out and stiffened, her hand flying over her clit as her orgasm hit her like a freight train. She kept rubbing herself through it until she finally went limp, panting harshly, blinking somewhat dazedly, surprised at what she'd just done. She was in the car park where anyone could have walked in and seen her. Vanessa didn't take those kinds of risks. Sure, she liked a bit of risk. There was a reason there was a strap-on in her desk drawer, after all, but she generally conducted those kinds of activities behind closed doors that didn't have glass windows. She quickly pulled her hand out of her pants, looking around, but thankfully no one was in sight. She started her car and drove home, her mind still full of Melanie. Hopefully Melanie Fox would think better of her attitude and apologize the next day, or at the very least, do what Vanessa told her to. Vanessa hadn't been bluffing. She didn't want to replace Melanie, but she would if she had to. She had to put the good of the company above her desire not to fire someone, because she liked looking at her ass. And if Melanie didn't fall in line with what Vanessa knew was in the company's best interests, she would have to go. One way or another, Vanessa would get her way. She always did. Chapter 3. Melanie was silently fuming. She wanted to fume loudly. She wanted to scream and throw things and have a proper tantrum, but she couldn't do that at work. When she got home, she'd get some old potatoes and hurl them against a wall. For now, she had to be content with glaring at her computer screen so hard she was surprised it didn't burst into flame. She knew she should be grateful that she even had a job to come back to, but it was difficult when the first thing that greeted her this morning was a long email from Vanessa about television adverts and billboards. It was as if their conversation yesterday had never happened. Melanie was good at her job. She wouldn't have been promoted to this position if she hadn't been. Surely Vanessa had to know that. From the way she was acting, Melanie may as well be some clueless intern who was wasting Vanessa's valuable time with crazy ideas. Melanie sent back a very polite email, at least as polite as she could manage, given how angry she was, re-explaining her theory about social media. She got no response. She wondered if she should go up to Vanessa's office, but decided that she didn't trust herself. The image of herself kissing Vanessa, and more, had cropped up more than once in her dreams last night, and it wasn't making things any easier today. If she went to Vanessa's office and they had another fight, which seemed likely given how things were going so far, Melanie might well just fling herself at Vanessa, kiss her, tear her clothes off, and do her best to fuck her. That was definitely not a good strategy if she wanted to keep her job, so she settled for sending another email. 10 minutes later, Emily, Vanessa's assistant, poked her head in through the door. "Melanie, Vanessa sent me to check how you're going on that billboard research," Melanie reminded herself. It's Vanessa I'm angry with, and biting Emily's head off over it won't help anything. I'm actually waiting for a response to an email I sent Vanessa. She received your email, but said that I should check in on you anyway. I presumed she'd responded already. No, she hasn't, Melanie said through gritted teeth. Well, did you have any questions about the billboards? Melanie gave serious thought to quitting right here and now. This was her dream job, but her dream was swiftly turning into a nightmare that she didn't know how to manage. No, nothing. Great. Emily gave her a perky smile and left. Melanie ground her teeth. A bad habit that she knew was going to cause her problems one day. No, she couldn't just quit. She needed to fight for her dream, even if Vanessa seemed intent on making it difficult. She'd do what Vanessa wanted, but she wasn't going to let their sales suffer under her watch. She wanted sales to soar under her leadership, and that meant going ahead with her plan. Unfortunately, she probably couldn't expect to keep her job if she didn't do what Vanessa wanted as well, so this would involve working a lot of overtime. Overtime she likely wouldn't be paid for, given that Vanessa didn't approve of what she would be doing with that overtime. Well, there were worse things than working shitty hours for little or no remuneration. Melanie had done her fair share of that in her career. She had thought she was past that stage, but finding out that she wasn't, while unpleasant, didn't have to be the end of everything. Melanie got to work. She did a deep dive into the local scene, trying to figure out where exactly their target market would be most concentrated and which billboards would overlook those areas. This might not be the direction she wanted to take things in, but Melanie was good at her job and soon had several promising options. She eliminated 2 of them after talking to the owners, who were asking ridiculous prices for rental, but that still left 5 that would make good additions to their advertising campaign. She typed out the report for Vanessa, going over it twice to remove the snarky comments about this not being the best line of advertising that had slipped through despite her best efforts. She didn't send it just yet, not wanting Vanessa to know she was finished early. That would no doubt prompt Vanessa to assign her more ill-thought-out work, and Melanie wanted to use this time for something more useful. She went to the IT department and managed to charm the login for the company's social media accounts out of the intern who was working there. She went on to the company Twitter account, which was sadly neglected. Well, she was going to fix that. First, she updated their profile picture and description. Then she sent out a few well-placed tweets, tagging well-known organizations to get her tweets noticed by more people. After that, she went onto Instagram. Unsurprisingly, that account too was out of date. She went through their product catalog and picked some of their best product photos to post to Instagram. She'd have to get a photographer to take some more creative shoots with some of the products. Maybe put paper wings on that pink toaster and photograph it flying across an empty field. Something that would draw people's attention, make them want to click for more. She got so lost in her work that she only realized that work had ended when it started getting dark outside. Melanie sighed as she finally sent that report off to Vanessa. Vanessa would probably want her to coordinate with sales to rent those billboards tomorrow, which would take hours. Then they need to get artists in to create the adverts to put on the billboards. Well, at least in this, Melanie could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. She'd make an advert suitable for both social media and billboards, then post it to Instagram and Twitter. She hadn't even started on Facebook yet. That was tomorrow's task. She went home feeling satisfied with the day's work. She had hoped to spend some time relaxing in the evening, maybe read for a bit or watch an episode of a TV series, but she was too exhausted from the late day to do much other than fall into bed. The next week fell into a pattern. Melanie would arrive early at work and leave late. She would spend her standard working hours doing the tasks Vanessa assigned her. Before and after work, though, she worked on what she knew needed to be done. It was amazing how quickly things on the different social medias picked up once the different accounts were properly managed. As she'd expected, their sales from the younger generation started to pick up. More people talked about them on Twitter, and their Facebook account steadily ticked up in likes. Of course, it was only a matter of time before Vanessa found out what Melanie was doing. If Melanie had thought Vanessa would be grateful for all the free overtime she'd been putting in, she was dead wrong. She got a short email from Vanessa telling Melanie to meet her in the boardroom immediately. Melanie had a feeling she knew what this was about and wasn't looking forward to this meeting, but it had to be done. She suspected there would be another fight and resolved to keep her temper in check this time. She was lucky not to have lost her job after the last time. No matter how infuriating Vanessa was, Melanie had to control herself and not shout at her, not to mention not kiss her. She worried that the latter would be harder than the former. Sure enough, when she entered the boardroom, Vanessa was in a towering temper. She glowered at Melanie and pointed to an empty chair. "Sit." Melanie sat, forcing herself to meet Vanessa's irate gaze. Vanessa was stunning in a red shift dress that hinted at what was underneath her suit jacket. "Well, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "I've been doing my job." "You've been going against my orders behind my back." "I've been doing everything you asked of me. I haven't done anything that wasn't strictly according to your instructions during working hours. Any of the extra work I've been putting in, I've done before or after work." "I didn't tell you to do that." "Are you seriously complaining about me going over and above what is required of me? What kind of boss discourages that kind of thing? I'm not even putting in for overtime. You're literally getting free labor out of me, and all you can do is complain." Vanessa turned so that her back was to Melanie. She slipped off her suit jacket, leaving her shoulders bare with the off-the-shoulder red dress. Melanie could see how tense her lean shoulders were, and wondered if Vanessa would relax were Melanie to go down on her right here and now. No, she couldn't think like that. Ah, fuck, she was already wet. This was so not going how she had wanted it to go. Chapter 4. Melanie Fox was right, and that irked Vanessa to no end. She had no right to complain when Melanie was putting in free overtime. She faced away from Melanie, worried that if she turned around, Melanie would be able to read the desire on her face. Vanessa wanted her. She wanted to fuck Melanie into compliance right over this boardroom table. She was so angry she wanted to hit something, preferably Melanie's plump backside. Was Melanie into that? Vanessa imagined the sound of her hand thwacking against Melanie's bare ass and had to hold back a moan. Melanie took advantage of Vanessa's silence to press her point. "Have you even looked at our numbers? Sales from the younger generation are skyrocketing. Our social media presence is coming alive. We're really being noticed. People are talking about us and word is spreading. What I'm doing is working, much more than a few extra billboards. Social media reaches more people than a billboard or even a TV advert ever could. You underestimate how many people are on networks like Facebook and Twitter and—" Vanessa snapped. She couldn't listen to Melanie detailing why she was right for another second. She spun around and grabbed Melanie by the shoulders. Melanie made a small noise of surprise but didn't protest as Vanessa kissed her hard. Vanessa was surprised by the vigor with which Melanie returned the kiss, as if Melanie wanted Vanessa as much as Vanessa wanted her. Vanessa shoved Melanie, causing her to stumble into the table. "You should learn some respect." "Make me," Melanie breathed. Vanessa grabbed Melanie again and manhandled her so that she was bent over the table, with Vanessa pressing up against her delicious ass. Melanie struggled against her grip, but Vanessa didn't lift weights at the gym every evening for nothing. She easily muscled Melanie under her control. "Do you want this, Melanie?" "Fuck yes." "You will tell me clearly if you want me to stop." Melanie nodded against the desk. "Don't stop." That was all the encouragement Vanessa needed. She grabbed Melanie's skirt, pulling it so hard that it ripped down the back. She tore off Melanie's panties, revealing her swollen, wet pussy. Melanie really did want this as badly as Vanessa did. Vanessa spread her legs and rubbed herself against Melanie's ass, getting some delicious pressure on her clit. Melanie squirmed around until she was practically humping the table, but Vanessa was having none of that. She grabbed Melanie's hips and pulled her back so that she couldn't reach the table with her clit. Melanie struggled against the grip, but Vanessa was stronger than her, and she wasn't going to stop unless Melanie told her to. "You need to learn to listen to your superiors. You do what I tell you to, when I tell you to do it, and right now, I'm telling you to keep still, or I'm going to make you get me off and not allow you to come." That got Melanie to stop squirming. She whined softly as Vanessa let a hand trail through the slick wetness between her thighs. Vanessa reached up, easily sliding 2 fingers into Melanie's pussy. Melanie moaned and pushed back into her. Vanessa slapped Melanie's ass sharply, I said not to move. She waited, wondering if Melanie was going to tell her to stop. But Melanie's only response was another breathless moan as she stilled. Vanessa pumped her fingers in and out of Melanie a few times, twisting them around until she found Melanie's G-spot. She knew she'd found the right place because Melanie squealed and writhed beneath her, panting harshly and rocking back once more. Vanessa removed her fingers completely. If you can't keep still, then I'm going to have to tie you up. That threat didn't seem to have the desired effect. Instead of stopping Melanie from moving, it had Melanie reaching a hand down to touch herself. Vanessa yanked that hand away. You really are a naughty girl, aren't you? She wished she had the strap on here. What had possessed her to have Melanie meet her in the boardroom rather than her office? Of course, she knew exactly what had been behind the decision. She had been trying to avoid the exact situation they were in right now. Surely she had thought she wouldn't dare to fuck Melanie in the boardroom, which didn't have locking doors, meaning that anyone could walk in at any moment. Vanessa knew this was a bad idea, but lust was effectively clouding her mind, letting her think of little else but how good Melanie felt beneath her. Hands on the table. Melanie did it, obeying for once. You can come on my fingers, but you're not to rock against the table. Do you understand? Vanessa, I can't. I need more. You can, and you will. Vanessa pushed her fingers back into Melanie's pussy and curved them downwards, finding her G-spot more quickly this time. Melanie cried out and writhed on Vanessa's fingers, but didn't push forward onto the desk. Vanessa pumped into her rough and fast, twisting on each thrust to rub against Melanie's G-spot. It didn't take long. No more than 10 thrusts later, Melanie was stiffening with a soft cry and squirting all over Vanessa's hand and the floor she came. Vanessa moved her right foot just in time. She didn't want to ruin her Manolo Blahnik heels. Vanessa didn't give her any time to recover. She pulled Melanie off the desk and manhandled her by a handful of her dark, curly hair so that she was on her knees. Vanessa was ready to explode and didn't care anymore about someone walking in, as long as she got to come first. She wriggled her red dress up and over her hips and pushed her panties down. Get me off with your mouth, she ordered. Melanie was still catching her breath, but she didn't hesitate. She shuffled forward on her knees and started licking Vanessa with abandon. Vanessa couldn't prevent the helpless moans of pleasure that were falling from her lips. Melanie's tongue felt so good. It was reaching right inside her, sending tendrils of pleasure throughout her whole body. Vanessa never wanted it to end, but she was hurtling to the edge at an unprecedented speed, and she couldn't bring herself to tell Melanie to slow down. Vanessa grabbed Melanie's hair, mashing Melanie's mouth down harder onto her clit. That little bit of extra pressure was all it took. Vanessa came harder than she'd ever come in her life. The orgasm was so intense that it overwhelmed all of her senses. When she finally came down, she realized she was no longer standing. She was sitting back on the boardroom table. Her legs could barely hold her up clearly. Melanie was getting up from the floor, surveying her torn skirt in dismay. What am I supposed to do with this? Vanessa smirked at her. That's your problem, isn't it? Melanie glared, but didn't argue. I trust you'll do as you're told from now on. Melanie tilted her chin up. Make me. It was incredible that after an orgasm like that, those 2 words could make Vanessa's body perk up and take notice. She stepped forward, crowding into Melanie's personal space. I do believe you're due for some disciplinary action, Melanie. You'll meet me at my place tonight for some personal discipline. I'll text you the address. Be there at 7. I'll be there, Melanie grinned. But I'm not promising to behave. Somehow, I don't find that surprising. Melanie pulled on her skirt as best she could and took off her sweater, tying it around her waist so that it hung down and hid the tear in the skirt. Creative. Vanessa watched her go and realized too late that she should have enlisted Melanie's help in cleaning up the boardroom. Half of it was her mess, after all. Vanessa couldn't very well call in the cleaning crew. No way was she explaining why there was cum all over the boardroom floor. She sighed as she did the walk of shame to the cleaning closet, trying to look nonchalant as she smuggled the supplies into the boardroom under her jacket. Cleaning up was not something she was used to. She couldn't bring herself to regret it. That had been the best orgasm she'd had in a very long time. It was worth some tedious cleanup. Next time she'd make sure Melanie did it. Next time they'd beat her house. The thought sent pleasurable shivers down her spine. She knew it probably wasn't a good idea to get involved with an employee, but there was no way Vanessa could turn down sex that good. As long as Melanie was willing, Vanessa was going to fuck her into oblivion. Vanessa finished cleaning up and spent the next several hours doing her best not to think about what had just happened. It wasn't that what had just happened wasn't extremely pleasant to think about, but it was also extremely distracting, and she would like to get some work done today. The hours until the end of the day dragged. Vanessa was frustrated and on edge. Her body seemed to have forgotten that it had already come once today. As much as she tried to get the encounter from earlier out of her mind, she kept going back to it, which made her so horny that it was all she could do to stop herself from touching her clit right there. No way was she going to do that. She had already masturbated at work once, and had sex in the boardroom, all since Melanie had been promoted. Clearly Melanie was a bad influence on her, but Vanessa couldn't bring herself to regret the promotion. She looked through the sales and found to her annoyance that Melanie was right. The work she was doing on social media really did seem to be making a difference. There were a number of queries on their Twitter and Facebook that led directly to sales, far more than those in the areas where the new billboards had gone up. Vanessa wanted to kick the desk, but the last time she'd done that she'd nearly broken her toe and damaged one of her favorite pairs of heels, so she restrained herself. She knew she had no right to be annoyed. Melanie was generating sales for the company and deserved to be commended for that, even if she was doing so in a way that wasn't how Vanessa had originally thought would work. Vanessa shut down their annoyingly active Facebook page and returned to her work, trying her best to focus and not think about tonight. She failed dismally. Chapter 5. Melanie felt her face burning as she walked back to her office. She was sure that everyone knew. She and Vanessa had hardly been quiet after all. She supposed that no one dared to walk in on the CEO when she was clearly having sex, but she didn't think she was imagining the looks she was getting. This wasn't who she was. Melanie wasn't that person who slept with the boss, except she'd never had a boss quite like Vanessa. Not only was Vanessa sexy as hell, but her manner was so hot that it made Melanie want nothing more than to get her hands on Vanessa and never let go. She made it back to her office and sat down carefully, trying not to tear her skirt any more than it already was. She'd have to bring a spare set of clothing to the office in the future. Melanie may be getting ahead of herself, but it certainly seemed like Vanessa was as keen on a repeat encounter as she was. It would be best to cover all her bases. Of course, changing into a different outfit would definitely alert the rest of the office to their activities, on the off chance that they didn't know already. There was nothing Melanie could do about that, though. She wasn't walking around in torn clothes again. She could tell Vanessa not to damage her clothing, but feeling Vanessa rip her clothes off had been so hot that Melanie couldn't bring herself to close down that option. She was determined to hold her own this time. She let Vanessa completely dominate her, and while that had been hot as hell, Melanie wasn't going to give in so easily next time. If Vanessa thought that Melanie was a pushover, then she had another thing coming. Melanie's brain wanted to spend the entire day going over their encounter or anticipating their next one, but she forced herself to focus. She needed to prove to Vanessa that she could do her job while being intimate with her if she wanted the situation to continue, and did she ever want the situation to continue? Melanie was no stranger to good sex, but sex that good? It was a revelation. Vanessa was something else entirely. She spent the rest of the day working with the advertising team on their new adverts, as well as coordinating with TV channels about which slots they were going to buy. The day passed slowly, but at least it was productive. When the end of the day finally came, instead of staying late as usual, Melanie dashed out of the office as soon as the clock hit 5. She wanted time to get home and shower and still make it to Vanessa's in time. Vanessa had texted her address, and while she wasn't far away, getting to her in traffic would still take some time. She ended up 10 minutes early and waited in the car until 1 minute to 7. Of course, Vanessa Reese's house was impressive in every way. It was traditional, old brick, a big old mansion-type house. At exactly 7 o'clock, Melanie rang on Vanessa's doorbell. Vanessa opened moments later, and Melanie pounced. She launched herself at Vanessa, flipping them around and pressing Vanessa's back into the wall, kissing her thoroughly. Vanessa returned the kiss with equal ferocity, but didn't stand idly by and let Melanie have her way. She grabbed Melanie roughly and flipped them again so that now Melanie was the one pinned to the wall. Melanie moaned both in desire and frustration as she bucked her hips, trying to dislodge Vanessa's solid presence. But Vanessa easily overpowered her. Why was that so fucking hot? "You'll learn how to behave," Vanessa murmured in Melanie's ear. She grabbed Melanie's wrist and yanked her sharply, causing Melanie to stumble after her. Vanessa pulled her through to the bedroom and shoved her backward onto the bed. Melanie's ass hit the bed and her legs went out from under her, landing her flat on her back on the mattress. Vanessa was on top of her at once. Melanie writhed and struggled, trying to flip them again, to get herself on top of Vanessa, but it was no use. Vanessa was lean and finely muscled and much stronger than Melanie. Vanessa spread her legs wide to support herself, not allowing herself to be flipped. Vanessa paused for a moment. "Are you into this, Melanie?" "So much, more than you can comprehend." Melanie tugged at her hands, which Vanessa had pinned to the bed. The sensation of being restrained made her breathless with arousal. "I'm going to tie you up. Tell me if you want me to stop." "I will," Melanie assured her. The moment Vanessa leaned away, presumably to get a rope, Melanie took advantage of the position. She grabbed Vanessa around the waist and flipped them so that Vanessa was sprawled beneath her. Melanie ground herself down on Vanessa, letting her clit rub against Vanessa's thigh. There were too many layers of fabric between them, but the sensation was still tantalizingly good. "You are naughty tonight, aren't you?" "I did warn you." "You did. And I told you that you'd be in for some discipline." Melanie didn't know exactly how it happened, but she was suddenly on her stomach, her full breast pressed into the mattress, and Vanessa was strapping leather cuffs around her wrists, then attaching them to loops on the headboard. "You've been a bad girl, Melanie, and I'm going to punish you for it. I'm going to spank you." Vanessa paused, presumably to give Melanie a chance to tell her to stop, but Melanie kept her mouth firmly closed. She'd never really been spanked before, but she couldn't deny that with Vanessa Reese, the idea was enticing as hell. "I need you to tell me that you're into this before I begin, Melanie. Silence is not consent." "I'm into it," Melanie said quickly. "I mean, I've never done it before, but I want to try it. I really, really want to try it." "Good," Vanessa purred. "Say red if you want me to stop, okay?" "Okay," Melanie breathed. Vanessa undressed her, ripping Melanie's shirt off and pulling her skirt and panties roughly down. Melanie turned her head to see Vanessa undressing too. She closed her eyes and rested her head back down on the pillow, waiting for the blow to fall. She expected Vanessa's hand, and was therefore surprised when some kind of hard implement hit her ass. It stung in all the right ways and immediately made Melanie long for another. Vanessa gave it to her quick and hard. "You will learn how to behave," Vanessa lectured, "or I will do this in the office, in front of everyone." Melanie was fairly sure Vanessa was bluffing, but there was a chance she wasn't, and Melanie didn't want to take that chance. Her ass was really starting to hurt now, throbbing in time with her clit. She squirmed, trying to get some relief, but the mattress was too flat to give her any real pressure on her clit, and her ass had nowhere to go, tied as she was. The spanking suddenly stopped. She felt Vanessa's lips by her ear. "I would continue, but I think I'd prefer to ravish you right here and now." She grabbed Melanie's hips and jerked them upward, so that Melanie was on her elbows and knees, an awkward position with her hands tied as they were. Melanie felt the head of some kind of dildo pressing into her pussy. Vanessa's hands were on her hips. It was a strap-on. Melanie felt her body overtaken by lust. She pushed back against Vanessa, quickly working up a rhythm. Vanessa didn't hold anything back, pounding into Melanie with abandon. It was just what Melanie needed. Her ass stung every time Vanessa collided with it, which spiked her arousal on each thrust. Her hands clenched into fists as she came suddenly without warning, so hard that she saw stars and the rest of the world faded out for a few moments. When she came to, Vanessa had pulled out and was fingering her own clit under the strap-on. "Let me do that," Melanie mumbled. Vanessa loosened the black leather straps but didn't remove the strap-on. Its gold silicone dildo stood proudly. She took the cuffs off Melanie, then she lay back on the bed. Melanie crawled to her eagerly and took the head of the gold dildo in her mouth, tasting her own pleasure on it. She watched out of the corner of her eyes. Vanessa's head tipped back and she groaned loudly. Melanie smiled to herself. She had known Vanessa would get off on seeing her with the gold dick in her mouth. Vanessa put a pillow under her head and her eyes were trained on Melanie watching her. Melanie closed her eyes and ran her tongue over the gold dildo, cleaning every last part of her own arousal from it. Good girl. She heard Vanessa mumble under her breath, and she liked it. She pushed the dildo to the side and parted the leather straps that ran down each side of Vanessa's labia. Melanie ran her tongue down each of them and pushed it into Vanessa's slick wetness. Vanessa's desire was very evident, and the taste of her pushed Melanie into overdrive. She worked with her mouth and her tongue. She took Vanessa's clit in her mouth and sucked on it. The noise Vanessa made was positively undignified, and Melanie loved it. What would everyone at the office think if they heard the great CEO making noises like this? She licked Vanessa until Vanessa was so tense that she was twitching at Melanie's every movement, her every nerve sensitive and ready to explode in pleasure. "I'm going to fuck Melanie." Melanie kept licking as Vanessa came, stopping only when Vanessa pushed her head away. She crawled up the bed so that she was level with Vanessa, wondering if Vanessa was one for cuddling. Vanessa pulled Melanie easily into her arms. Melanie hummed in pleasure. She relaxed into the embrace. "So, are you going to behave now?" "Not a chance," Vanessa chuckled. "I suppose I should have expected that. My naughty girl." "I'd do what you said if I honestly thought it was in the best interests of the company. My job is to ensure our sales expand, and that's what I'm going to do." "I know that's what you want to do, but I've been doing this for a lot longer than you have. Why won't you accept that I simply know more in this area?" Though the words themselves may be taken as hostile, Vanessa's tone was more curious than anything else. Melanie supposed that it would be difficult for anyone to muster any kind of aggression after sex like that. "You don't, though." She was surprised to find that she wasn't angry. She was too loose and sated for that. "You know more about running a business than me, that's for sure. But sales specifically? I've spent years in this field. I know it inside and out. That's why I got this promotion. You must have noticed that what I'm doing is working. I think it's about time you gave it a chance." Vanessa was silent for a minute before responding. "What is it you want of me?" "I want you to clear me to work officially on the things that I think will increase our sales. We could even do it on a trial basis if you'd like. We could give it 2 months, and if you aren't impressed by our sales by the end of that time, we could go back to your original plan." "You sound pretty confident that your idea will work." "I am. I wouldn't be fighting so hard for it if I wasn't." Vanessa was quiet for a few more minutes while she mulled it over. "Very well. We'll do what you want on a trial basis. But be prepared to change your approach if it doesn't work." "I will. I only want what's best for the company. I don't need to be right. If I'm wrong and you're right, then I'll learn, and I'll have improved myself and my skills. I won't disappoint you, Vanessa. I swear." "You know, you remind me a lot of myself 20 years ago. I think that's why you get under my skin so much. I see the mistakes I made in you, and it reminds me of my own shortcomings." "What kind of mistakes did you make?" Melanie had only read of Vanessa's meteoric success in the business world and was curious to hear another side to it. "I was young and passionate. I was sure that I knew what was best, and I neglected to listen to my people who had more knowledge and experience than I did. It resulted in my career getting off to a rocky start. I managed to turn things around, but I would have made my life much easier if I'd listened in the first place." Melanie supposed Vanessa's attitude made more sense now, given her history. It was always difficult to see aspects of yourself that you weren't proud of repeated in someone else. It was good that Vanessa was recognizing the pattern. because recognizing that kind of thing was the only way you were going to make any progress on defeating it. I understand. It's not that I'm not listening. I just have a professional disagreement. Tell me more about why you think the billboards and adverts are the way to go. Melanie still thought she was right, but maybe she could learn something anyway. I've watched businesses rise and fall over the years. I've done my research. The businesses that tend to get their products out there the best are the ones that go for TV adverts and billboards. That's just how it is. That may be how it was, but that's not how it is anymore. How long has it been since you did a deep dive into marketing research? A while, Vanessa admitted. The world is changing quickly. Social media is on the rise in all areas of life. We need to adjust or we'll be left behind. Vanessa nodded slowly. I can see you put a lot of thought into this. I suppose I did hire you for a reason. Melanie glowed inwardly with satisfaction. She hadn't managed to hold her own like she'd hoped. This was even better than what she'd hoped for. She and Vanessa were actually managing to talk to each other rather than shout at each other or exchange glares across a desk. Not only were they making progress on the work front, but she found she actually really liked talking to Vanessa. Tell me more about yourself. I followed your career through the media, but the news doesn't say much about you. Melanie wondered if she was crossing a line, and if Vanessa would tell her to mind her own business. After all, hot sex and work negotiations were different to the more intimate kind of conversation she was initiating. To her surprise, Vanessa answered easily without hesitation. What do you want to know? What made you decide to make your sexuality public? It hasn't exactly made things easy for you. No, it hasn't. I hid it for a while in my teens and early 20s. I don't really have one big epiphany moment to share. I just realized over the years that if I have to hide who I am for my career, then the career isn't worth it. So I came out. I knew that it may mean I would never make it in the business world, but I was ready to fight tooth and nail to do everything I could to make sure that didn't happen. It hasn't been easy, but it has been worth it. My path has opened up an easier path for other gay women of color to live their lives as themselves without giving up on their dreams. Your story certainly inspired me. That's why I joined your company in the first place. Vanessa smiled softly. I'm glad. Are you happy with us? Very much. Especially now that we're working with each other rather than against each other. Who knew that sex could be such a good negotiation tool? Vanessa chuckled. Too bad I can't bend every uncooperative employee over a desk to encourage better dialogue between us. No, I don't suppose that would go down too well with most of them. Melanie agreed with a giggle. They chatted for ages, until Melanie's eyes were drooping with tiredness. She felt herself drifting off and jerked herself awake. I should go. You can stay if you'd like. Melanie considered the offer. It was a tempting one, but she decided that it was a boundary she didn't want to cross. Sex was one thing, but sleeping over was something else entirely in her mind. She knew that getting emotionally entangled with her boss was a bad idea. If more sex was the offer, Melanie certainly wasn't going to turn that down, but she couldn't let it become more than that, for the sake of her career. Emotions made things far too complicated. Best to keep it to excellent sex and some pleasant pillow talk. I'd rather head home, I think. Thank you for tonight, Vanessa. We should do it again. Well, you bet we will. The promise in Vanessa's voice sent shivers down Melanie's spine. She collected her stuff and let Vanessa walk her to the door. It was a little awkward, but that was to be expected. This thing between them was still new and would take time to settle into fully. Melanie was grinning widely as she got into her car and headed home. All in all, it had been both a productive and pleasant night. She couldn't wait to see where this went. Chapter 6. Vanessa lay awake for a long time thinking. She had so enjoyed talking to Melanie, more than she'd enjoyed talking to anyone in a long time. Melanie was smart and had a quick sense of humor. She was also empathetic and insightful, not to mention passionate and determined. Vanessa wanted to get to know her better, and not just her body. She never really dated much. She'd always put her career first. She didn't have time to date, and the few attempts she'd made had ended in disaster. No one understood her dedication to her work and how she always put that first. Now at 54 years old, she was finally rethinking that with a woman 20 years younger than her. Something told her that Melanie would understand. Something told her that she'd be willing to make compromises for Melanie's sake that she hadn't been willing to make for anyone she had previously dated. It was decided then. Tomorrow, Vanessa would ask Melanie out on a date. She'd take her somewhere nice, and they could talk some more. Maybe Vanessa could give this dating thing a real shot. She didn't know if it was possible to balance a relationship and her career, but Melanie made her want to try. The next day she called Melanie into her office at lunchtime. Melanie came in with a bright smile that lit up the room around her. "Good afternoon, Vanessa." "Good afternoon, Melanie. How are things going?" "They're going great." Melanie launched into an explanation of what she was doing with their social media. It wasn't why Vanessa had called her here, but it was important information for Vanessa to be made aware of, so she gave it her full attention, asking questions and making comments where necessary. When Melanie was finally done with her report, Vanessa came around the desk, leaning her ass on the edge of it as she looked Melanie deliberately up and down. Melanie looked stunning in a bright blue pantsuit that was tight in all the right places. Her hair was wild and full of curls. Vanessa enjoyed that Melanie never tried to tone it down or pull it back. Melanie's full lips were tempting. "Come out with me." "What?" "Come out on a date with me. Tonight." Melanie hesitated, letting the silence stretch for a few awkward moments. "No." What? Had Vanessa read this entirely wrong? She was sure Melanie was into her too. The sex last night had proven that much beyond a doubt. Was she mistaken when she thought Melanie had enjoyed their conversation last night as much as she had? Why not? Melanie sighed. "It's not that I don't like you, Vanessa. Were the circumstances different, I would love nothing more than to go on a date with you. You're my boss, though. It's a bad idea." Vanessa scoffed. "It's not like you're going to get into trouble for workplace dating. That's not even against the rules here. Or are you worried I'll take advantage of you?" "No, that's not it. I just don't want to make things complicated between us. Sex is one thing, something I'd be glad to have more of, if you're keen for that. But I don't want to date within my workplace, even if it's not against the rules here." Logically, Vanessa knew that was a perfectly reasonable policy. It was very close to her own previous practice of not dating so as not to have interference with her work. She had no right to be angry at Melanie, but anger pounded through her veins regardless. She hadn't even considered the possibility that she'd be rejected. What woman in her right mind would reject her? She was undeniably a catch. "Get out." "Vanessa, be reasonable. There's no call to ruin a good thing. We can still—" "Get out of my office right now." Melanie glared at her and spun on her heel before stalking out. Vanessa flopped back into her chair. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. She felt like they were back to where they had started, both furious with each other and not speaking. It had been a short-lived period of peace, and she already missed it. The worst was that, unlike when Melanie was going against her direct orders, for this, there was no way she could even consider real disciplinary action, let alone firing her. Melanie had every right to say no to a date, and trying to coerce her into doing it would make Vanessa a sexual predator. Still, Vanessa couldn't help but be hurt. She had thought they had something, but Melanie was throwing away the possibility just because she didn't want things to get complicated. Vanessa snorted as she realized the true hypocrisy of her thoughts. She had always turned down dating for reasons very similar to those Melanie was using now. Just because things had changed for her didn't mean that those reasons didn't exist for anyone else. She had no right to be angry, Vanessa reminded herself. Her anger persisted despite her best efforts to argue it away. She stomped back to her desk and threw herself into work, determined to forget all about Melanie. She could use Emily as a go-between for Melanie and herself. They never even needed to talk. She'd forget all about the brief fling she'd had with Melanie and move on with her life. A small traitorous part of her was hoping that Melanie would change her mind. Every time there was a knock on the office door, her stomach swooped a little, wondering if it would be Melanie, back to take her up on her offer of a date. It never was. By the time the day ended, Vanessa was in a positively foul mood. She took the service stairs down to the parking garage, not wanting to subject anyone else to her disagreeable presence right now. She went to the gym and gloved up, going straight for the boxing bag. An hour later, Vanessa was covered in sweat, but feeling much better. She did her best not to think about Melanie as she showered, as that would just necessitate her going back to the boxing bag. She got home, had a glass of wine with dinner, and focused on forgetting Melanie existed. Forgetting Melanie existed was difficult when she was doing such excellent work. Over the next week, their social media presence continued to grow. They were getting more and more likes, messages, and tags. Vanessa generally dismissed those kinds of things as trivial and irrelevant, but she couldn't dismiss the uptick in their sales. It irked her to no end that Melanie was doing such a good job. Vanessa would have loved to be able to call Melanie into her office and shout at her for something, but there was nothing she could think to criticize. Vanessa wondered if Melanie was avoiding her. She certainly wasn't seeing Melanie on her way in or out of work. It could be that Melanie was still working extra hours, but she wasn't putting in for overtime. Besides, Vanessa frequently arrived early or worked late, so she and Melanie should have bumped into each other by now. She was on Facebook, looking through the various queries that had gotten on their page when she saw a friend suggestion for Melanie's personal Facebook account. Vanessa hesitated before sending through the friend request. It couldn't hurt to take a closer look at Melanie's life, right? She was a little surprised when a few minutes later, Melanie accepted the friend request. Maybe she felt compelled to. Vanessa was her boss, after all. Vanessa resolved not to interact with Melanie further. The last thing she wanted was to coerce Melanie into doing something she didn't want to do but felt obligated to do in order to keep her job secure. Vanessa started scrolling through Melanie's Facebook page. It felt suspiciously like stalking, but she couldn't seem to stop doing it. She saw very little about Melanie herself. Most of Melanie's posts were business-related. There were a few photos of Melanie in cute work outfits and at company functions, but that was about it. Vanessa technically had a Facebook page, but it was sadly neglected. She supposed that she should remedy that, now that their social media was getting so much attention. So she spent the next few hours updating her information and debating with herself over which photos to upload. Vanessa didn't have a lot of photos of herself, other than the official photos for their website that she'd had a photographer take of all the staff a couple of years ago. Vanessa uploaded a few pictures, but found herself drawn back to Melanie's page. She'd already scrolled through all the recent posts, but found herself going through Melanie's photos again and again. She was so beautiful. Vanessa wondered what it would be like to have Melanie on her arm at a function. The two of them could laugh about the stuffy investors afterward and make up stories about how the most extravagantly dressed women came up with their outfit ideas. She startled slightly at a knock on her door. Melanie poked her head in. "We need to talk, Vanessa." Vanessa folded her arms. "Do you have an appointment?" "What? No. Since when do I need an appointment? I asked Emily if you were busy, and she said you weren't." "Well, I am. Make an appointment through Emily if you want to talk to me. That will be all, Melanie." Vanessa knew she was being immature, but she was still hurt by Melanie's rejection, and she couldn't help but lash out just a little bit. Melanie huffed and left without another word, leaving Vanessa on edge and unsatisfied. She would have felt better if Melanie had called her out on her bullshit, but Melanie was playing it safe, and that was probably Vanessa's fault. If she had given Melanie cause to fear that her job might be in danger, she needed to correct that. She sighed and started composing an email. "Melanie, I don't know what you've taken away from our conversation last week, but I wanted to clarify a few things. I am not happy that you rejected me. I disagree with your reasons, and I'm hurt by the rejection. However, I don't want you to think for a second that this puts your job in any danger. I would never fire you or put you under disciplinary action because you don't want to go on a date with me. I am keeping distance between us for now for both our sakes, but you do not need to worry about avoiding me or appeasing me. In fact, please don't do either of those things. I like your passion, and it's something that is an asset to the business. Please continue to do excellent work, and know that your job is secure regardless of any personal issues we have. Vanessa." Vanessa frowned as she reread the email. Her heart didn't want to be so civil with Melanie, but she needed to think with her brain. Vanessa hit send. Letting your emotions guide you is just bad business practice. Melanie didn't respond to the email, not that Vanessa had expected her to. She'd sent it, and that's what was important. She did her best to focus on her work and not think about Melanie. It didn't help that Vanessa was haunted by that evening they had spent together. It kept popping up in her dreams, and in her dreams Melanie had agreed to stay the night. They woke up in each other's arms and chatted as they made breakfast together. Vanessa had never thought of herself as particularly domestic, but Melanie seemed to bring things out in her that she had thought were nothing more than long-dead half-dreams, the kind you have between waking and sleeping. Vanessa wondered if she should try actually dating, since she suddenly seemed so interested in the whole endeavor. After all, there were plenty of women out there who'd kill to date her. She would practically have her pick. The thought held little appeal for Vanessa, though. She wanted Melanie, not some random person off the street. Melanie isn't an option, she told herself firmly. It's someone else or nothing. Vanessa was determined to make it someone else or nothing. Melanie had indicated that she would be happy to keep having sex, and while Vanessa was probably crazy to turn down sex that good, she was still hurt by Melanie's rejection. Vanessa knew that she had an excellent personality. Sure, her body was great too, but she wasn't going to settle for just being used for her body, even if she was using Melanie in the same way. She'd had flings before that were nothing more than sex, but Vanessa had never found them truly satisfying. So she made do with an extensive collection of toys at home and the occasional short-term encounter to keep her from going mad for lack of sex. The worst was that she now couldn't even masturbate in peace. Melanie invaded her thoughts every time she touched herself, and no matter how many times Vanessa tried to boot her out, Melanie refused to leave. It didn't help that her memories and fantasies of Melanie had served up some of the best orgasms she'd ever had. Vanessa had taken to masturbating every morning before work, just to help her resist the urge during the day to march down to Melanie's office and fuck her against a desk again. She had to remind herself that if she did that, it would be no more than sex, and she wasn't going to settle for that. Vanessa didn't know how long she and Melanie could maintain this state of uneasy stasis between them, but she certainly wasn't going to be the first one to break. She had stared down businessmen far more stubborn than Melanie, and won. Vanessa wouldn't settle for anything less than exactly what she wanted, and that was that. Chapter 7. To say Melanie was annoyed was an understatement. She didn't understand Vanessa's infuriating attitude. So Melanie didn't want to date, big deal. It's not like she was saying she didn't like Vanessa. Of all people, Vanessa should understand Melanie's wish not to let her career become entangled with romance. And yet, Vanessa remained stubbornly silent, as she had since she sent that email. It wasn't that Melanie didn't appreciate the email, because she did, but she wanted more from Vanessa. She wanted sex, damn it. She knew that it had been good for Vanessa, too, but maybe not as good as it was for Melanie, because if it had been, Melanie would be bent over the desk and taking a fucking from Vanessa right now. She sighed and squirmed in her chair. Great, now she was wet again. This was getting to be a problem. Thinking of Vanessa during work was a bad idea in terms of her libido, but it was very difficult not to do that, considering she worked for Vanessa and constantly heard her name around the office. Melanie sighed as she checked Vanessa's Facebook page again. Vanessa really wasn't doing the best job of promoting herself. She was clearly trying, but she also didn't know as much about marketing as Melanie did. Melanie would be telling Vanessa all this right now, except Vanessa had kicked her out of her office. Melanie knew that this appointment thing was rubbish. No one had to make an appointment to see Vanessa, assuming she wasn't in a meeting. Vanessa was just being petty over being rejected for a date. Melanie had thought better of her. No one liked being rejected, and she supposed that Vanessa didn't have much experience in the area, at least when it came to dating, but that was no excuse. She did her best to focus on her work, knowing that it would irritate Vanessa to see her doing excellent work about which she couldn't find anything to criticize. But it was difficult when her brain was bombarding her with images of herself and Vanessa getting hot and steamy in the boardroom again. It was a silly thing that did it. Melanie was scrolling through their Instagram and came across a picture of a woman in a tight red bathing suit. She looked a lot like Vanessa, though not as sexy as Vanessa would look in that bathing suit. That had Melanie's mind going down a road of her and Vanessa relaxing in the shallows of a pool together, kissing lazily and touching each other under the water. She snapped. She wasn't going to put up with this, not when there was a chance she didn't have to. Melanie marched into Vanessa's office without knocking and closed the door. She locked it behind her. She turned the blinds to closed.
Melanie, what are you—"
Vanessa's voice cut off with a slight choking sound as Melanie started undressing. In mere moments, she stood naked before Vanessa. She stalked around the desk, settling herself on Vanessa's lap. "Tell me you don't want me."
"Fuck, Melanie."
Melanie leaned in and caught Vanessa's lips in a kiss. If she'd been harboring any doubts about Vanessa's reaction to this drastic action, those doubts vanished as Vanessa returned the kiss with such enthusiasm it took Melanie's breath away. The next thing she knew, there was a great clattering as Vanessa swiped an arm across the desk, clearing space. Melanie's back hit the desk. Vanessa immediately pressed 2 fingers into Melanie's pussy. Yet this was what Melanie needed. She spread her legs, giving Vanessa better access. She had little leverage to touch Vanessa from this position, but that was the least of her worries right now. Vanessa was now using her other hand to rub Melanie's clit in time with her thrusts, and Melanie knew she wasn't going to last long if this kept up. Flip over. Melanie did it without question. Vanessa clearly had a thing for her ass. She was pressed uncomfortably against the desk, but so turned on she thought she might come out of her skin if Vanessa didn't touch her again soon. Melanie craned her neck just enough to see Vanessa taking her skirt off. Her movements betrayed the same urgency Melanie felt. Had she been struggling as much as Melanie had since their fight? Certainly looked like it. Vanessa didn't bother to take her shirt off. She rummaged through a drawer and came up with a strap-on. Similar leather harness as the last one, only this time the dildo was made of pale pink glass. It was stunning. Melanie had no idea why Vanessa had that thing at work, and right now she didn't care. All she cared about was getting it inside her as quickly as possible. She wondered what the glass would feel like inside her. Melanie spread her legs as wide as they would go, straining to look over her shoulder to see what Vanessa was doing. As soon as Vanessa finished attaching the strap onto her hips, she shuffled over to Melanie and pushed the glass dildo slowly but surely deep into Melanie's pussy. Melanie gasped as she felt the cold hardness of the glass as it pushed inside her. It felt like nothing else on earth, and Melanie liked it. She liked how firm and cold it felt. Melanie scrabbled for purchase on the desk as Vanessa started thrusting into her. The way Vanessa was moving and Melanie's groin pressing against the desk on every stroke. If she shifted just a little bit, yes, there it was. The pressure on her clit was just perfect. Melanie knew that she should probably try to be quiet, but she couldn't help the moans and cries falling from her lips. Vanessa was doing no better, and the entire desk was shaking as they went at it with abandon.
"You will learn to behave one way or another,"
Vanessa growled in Melanie's ear.
"Coming into my office and displaying yourself like that. Very inappropriate, Melanie."
Melanie wanted to point out that if her behavior was inappropriate, fucking her over the desk was even more so, but she didn't have the breath to argue. She gasped out something incoherent and pushed back against Vanessa's thrusts. Her orgasm so close she could almost taste it. Vanessa came first, crying out and stilling, her hands like vices on Melanie's hips. Melanie rocked twice more against the desk, and then she was coming too, their cries intermingling as they were both lost in pleasure. Melanie went limp against the desk as Vanessa pulled out of her. She realized that they had made a mess all over the desk and the floor. A number of papers were soaking wet, and the desk was dripping. Well, Vanessa was the one who had decided to fuck her over the desk. It wasn't Melanie's fault if they had ruined a few papers.
"Help me clean up."
Melanie groaned as she got up, walking over to where she left her clothes, pulling her pants back on. "Do you have cleaning supplies in here?"
"I do," Vanessa grinned. "I made sure to stock the office after last time, just in case."
Vanessa pulled some cleaning supplies out of a drawer, and the two of them set to work. "I don't think you're going to be able to save these papers," Vanessa shrugged.
"I'll get Emily to reprint them."
When they were done making the office presentable again, Melanie turned to Vanessa and squared her shoulders. "We should do this again, and in a more prepared fashion than today.
Come here, Melanie. Let's talk."
There wasn't really a good space to cuddle in the office, but Vanessa sat in her big desk chair and pulled Melanie into her lap. Melanie wriggled a little to get comfortable, enjoying the feeling of Vanessa's body pressed up against her.
"We both want more of us."
"Yes," Melanie admitted. "We want different things, though.
I'm not so sure we do. You like this talking, getting to know each other, I can tell.
I do. It's just, I don't want to put my career at risk. If we start dating and things go wrong between us.
I wouldn't let that interfere with our work.
How can you say that? You've been refusing to see me ever since I turned you down. I've had valid work issues I needed to bring up with you, and they've gone unaddressed because you have already allowed our personal issues to interfere with our work.
Vanessa sighed. You're right. I know I haven't exactly been acting in an exemplary manner. I guess I'm just not used to being rejected.
You probably got a lot of that when you were rising up in the business world.
Yes, but I haven't had to face that kind of thing for over a decade. Consider me out of practice. Melanie, if we give this a go, I swear that I'll do better. I know I've been avoiding you, but I've been keeping up with your work. You're a true asset to this company, and I don't want to lose you. I will not allow myself to sabotage your career, especially to the detriment of my own business, no matter what happens between us. I promise.
Melanie turned a little so that she could look into Vanessa's eyes. She found only sincerity there and couldn't help but let her mind wander. What if she and Vanessa dated? She couldn't deny that she liked the idea. She was still nervous about it tanking her career, but Vanessa seemed so sincere that Melanie was having trouble disbelieving her right now. Besides, when did anyone ever find love without any risk? What if Vanessa was the one, and Melanie just sat idly and let her go by because she was more worried about work than finding her soulmate? Work would need to come first. There would be times when I'd have to prioritize my job over you.
Vanessa chuckled. That's exactly the speech I used to give anyone I tried to date. The speech I was about to give you. We're on the same page there, Melanie. We both value our careers too much to let them suffer for a relationship. Let's just give it a try, okay? If it doesn't work, then we can readjust. Maybe switch to being just friends, or maybe sex buddies. We can figure it out.
Melanie might regret this, but here in Vanessa's arms, everything seemed to make so much sense. She wanted more of it, and not just the sex. Vanessa was right. She did enjoy this. If there was a way she could get more of it without putting her career on the line, well, she wanted to give that a shot. Okay.
Okay?
I'll go on a date with you. Vanessa squeezed Melanie in a tight hug.
You won't regret it. Tonight?
Tonight,
Melanie agreed, somewhat breathlessly.
She reluctantly dislodged herself from Vanessa's lap. I better get back to work.
Send me your address and I'll pick you up at 7.
Will do. I'll see you then, Vanessa.
See you then, Melanie.
Melanie went back to her office with a silly grin on her face. She didn't even care about the scandalized look she got from the people she passed along the way. They absolutely knew she had just been fucking the boss, and she absolutely didn't care. If they knew how good that sex was, they'd be lining up outside Vanessa's door instead of giving Melanie weird looks. The rest of the day rushed by, and before she knew it, Melanie was hurrying home to take a shower and get dressed for her date with Vanessa. There, she hit a wall. She had last been on a date 5 years ago. It had lasted half an hour. She had gotten a work call midway through and had to leave. Needless to say, it had never gone any further than that. To say Melanie was out of practice when it came to dating was an understatement. What was she supposed to wear for a date? How did she do her hair and her makeup? Fuck. Melanie tore through her closet, trying to find something suitable. She hadn't even thought to ask where Vanessa was going to take her. Was it somewhere fancy, casual, somewhere in between? Surely Vanessa wouldn't take her to a fancy restaurant without giving her a heads up, right? Melanie settled for a smart casual, going with a cute black skirt and a red top to match it. She hauled out an old pair of red high heels that she seldom wore because of how uncomfortable they were, but for tonight, she would make an exception. She spent the next half hour doing, undoing, and redoing her makeup, until she was finally satisfied that she'd gotten it just done up enough without being too overdone, just in time, too. She applied more products to her hair and shook out its wild curls just in time when the doorbell rang. Well, so much for doing something nice with her hair. Melanie checked it in the mirror once more, patting down a few stray strands before hurrying to the door. Vanessa was standing on her doorstep with a bunch of red roses. For you. Melanie could feel herself blushing. Thank you, she said shyly. I'll just go put these in water. She grabbed a vase from the kitchen cupboard and filled it with water before hurrying back to Vanessa, who was waiting in the hall. Shall we go then? Vanessa smiled at her. Let's. Melanie didn't know what to say as I got into the car. What did one say at the beginning of a first date? She felt incredibly awkward. But Vanessa didn't seem to have the same problem. She was always so sure of herself. It was unfairly sexy. I thought I'd take us to my favorite Italian place, if that's all right with you. Italian is great. I don't think you can really go wrong with pasta and pizza. Exactly. I've never been much of a chef myself. I'm too busy with work to cook, so I end up eating out or ordering in a lot. I'm the same, Melanie admitted. It was wreaking havoc with my cholesterol, so now I've got a list of places that are more cholesterol-friendly. Oh, well, we can go to one of your favorite places if you'd prefer. I don't want to mess with your cholesterol. No, that's okay. I'm allowed a treat every now and then. I just can't eat like I used to every night. Vanessa nodded. I've been lucky that my numbers have held steady despite my less-than-ideal diet. I think it's because I exercise a lot. I can tell. You're certainly able to overpower me easily. Don't remind me of that, Vanessa groaned. Not when I have to sit through an entire dinner without burying my face in your pussy. Then don't say things like that to me. Fuck, now you know exactly what I'll be thinking about the entire dinner. What we'll both be thinking about. Vanessa glanced at Melanie. We could skip dinner and go straight to my place. Melanie chuckled. No, we're big girls. We can keep it in our pants a little longer. I want to have a real date with you. Not that I'm saying no to going to your place afterward, quite the opposite. But I want a chance to talk to you without your tongue doing unspeakable things to me and distracting me from everything else. I'll show you unspeakable things, Vanessa muttered. Touch yourself. What? You heard me. Touch yourself. Now? Here? That's right. We've got 5 minutes before we get to the restaurant. I want you to get as close to coming as you can, but don't come yet. You want me to do that and then sit through a dinner? Melanie asked incredulously. You're wasting time, Melanie. 4 minutes. I'll make you regret it later if you don't follow instructions like a good girl now. Melanie scrambled to get her hand down under her skirt, pulling her panties aside. She started rubbing her clit, moaning softly and sinking lower down in her chair, spreading her legs wider. She didn't know where Vanessa came up with these ideas, but it was divine torture, touching herself, knowing that she'd soon be unable to do anything but sit with her arousal and calmly order food like nothing was wrong. The fact that someone passing by might look closely enough through the window to see what she was doing only heightened her sensations. Who knew she had such a thing for risk? Vanessa did, clearly. Though Melanie didn't know how Vanessa had figured that out when she herself hadn't known. Too soon, they were at the restaurant. Just another minute, Melanie whined. I'm so close. Not a chance. You're not coming before dinner. But Vanessa, I'll tell you what. I'll give you another minute. In fact, I'll give you as many minutes as you'd like. But you're not coming before we finish our date. That would just prolong the torture. And as sweet as this torture was, Melanie didn't know if she would survive. Let's go, she grumbled, pulling her hand out of her panties. Do you have a wet wipe or something? In the glove compartment. Do I even want to know why you carry these around? Let's just say that experience has taught me you can never be too prepared. Someday Melanie would get that story out of her. They went inside and ordered. Melanie squirmed around in her chair trying to get comfortable. She wanted to touch herself so badly it was difficult to think of anything else. Quit wriggling. Look at the menu and tell me what you want. Is this what dating you is going to be like? You bossing me around all the time? Tell me you don't like it, and I'll never do it again outside of a work setting. Melanie glared at the napkin. She couldn't tell Vanessa that she didn't like it because that simply wasn't true. She knew she was blushing again, but pretended that Vanessa didn't notice. Well, I like it, Melanie admitted reluctantly. Then sit still and tell me what you want to eat. Melanie looked through the menu, willing herself to focus on food and not on how much she wanted to devour Vanessa right here and now in front of all these strangers. Distract me, Vanessa grinned. What do you want to talk about? Anything. Tell me about the last time you dated someone. Oh, so we're doing sad stories, are we? Very well. Thankfully, Melanie did manage to forget about her arousal as she listened to Vanessa's various bad experiences in dating. None of those other women deserved Vanessa. They just didn't understand the business world and what it was like to be in as high a position as Vanessa was. It was a lot of pressure, and you couldn't afford to make the mistakes most people could make. They really were perfect for each other, Melanie thought absently as they laughed about Vanessa's crazy ex, trying to buy Vanessa's company so as to be able to monopolize her attention. Only she was drunk, and attempting to convince the shareholders to give her the company rights in exchange for a frankly alarming number of Walmart coupons. Melanie had never had anyone really crazy like that, and she hoped never to have to. If things went well with her and Vanessa, she'd never have another ex again. But she was getting way ahead of herself here. Vanessa's voice took on a more serious tone. "There's something we need to discuss, if we're going to go for this." "No more sex in the office?" "Hell no. Sex in the office is far too hot to say no to. What's the point of being the boss if you can't fuck your hot girlfriend over a desk whenever you want to?" "Girlfriend?" "If that's what you'd want. Is it too soon to talk about labels?" "No, I like it. But what is it you want to talk about, if not sex in the office?" "It's kind of related. We're going to have to be a lot more careful. I've already got someone coming in next week to soundproof my office walls." "Why? As you said, you're the boss." "Yes, but I don't think it's a good idea for anyone to know we're dating. It's too late to stop them realizing we had a fling, but I want to keep it as a fling in their minds. If it came out that I was dating one of my employees, it could go very badly for the company. Meaningless sex is one thing, but a relationship complicates things a lot." Vanessa was right there. The last thing the company needed was to be involved in a scandal, not when they were doing so well. No matter how much Melanie insisted everything was above board, someone would shout sexual harassment, and once those words had been uttered, things got ugly pretty quickly, regardless of the truth of the matter. When the press got hold of it, "You're right. We'll need to be more careful." Relief broke out over Vanessa's face. "You agree, then, to hiding?" "Of course. It would negatively affect both of our careers were we to date in public. Doing so in secret is the only good solution." It wasn't perfect, but Melanie wasn't willing to give up her dream job to go and work at another company, so she would simply have to get used to sneaking around. She supposed there were worse things. If she got to date Vanessa, she would still be winning. "That's great. We're agreed, then. We'll have to work out the details. Figure out how to explain it away if we're seen together outside of work, etc." Melanie nodded, her mind already spinning with all the possibilities. They would need to keep any trysts in the office brief, even with the soundproofing, so as not to arouse suspicions. They would have to arrive at work separately, even if they had slept over at one another's places and in fresh clothes. This was going to be difficult, but Melanie was 100% sure that it was going to be worth it. Chapter 8. Vanessa found herself smiling and forced herself to stop. The middle of a board meeting was not the place to be smiling dreamily into space. She told herself to focus on what was in front of her and not think about the sunflowers Melanie had gotten her last night. Every Monday, Melanie bought Vanessa flowers. To brighten the start of her week, she said. Vanessa always looked forward to it, wondering what colorful new flower Melanie would bring her next time. Vanessa had taken her own twist to the tradition. At the end of every week, she bought Melanie chocolates to sweeten the end of her week. Melanie always tried to guess what chocolates Vanessa would get, but she never got it right. Vanessa knew a specialized chocolate place that had endless ranges of fancy chocolates and even did custom-made ones. Valentine's Day was coming up, and Vanessa was thinking of getting chocolates with Melanie's name on them, 1 letter per chocolate, arranged in order. That in a heart-shaped box would be the perfect gift. And now she was grinning, like an idiot again. Vanessa looked back down at her notes and the various graphs that were going through in the very dull meeting. She'd much rather be at home with Melanie, making up silly pictures in the stars through the skylight, or fucking her so thoroughly she could barely talk. Now that thought was going to get her into trouble quickly here. The meeting dragged on and on. It wasn't even a productive meeting. Things were going smoothly in all areas of the business, and there wasn't really a lot to discuss, other than some basic admin issues. They didn't really need a meeting, but the shareholders expected a weekly meeting, and there had nearly been a riot when Vanessa suggested they skip it or do it over email. She finally stepped out of the boardroom and headed to her office. She got out her phone and sent a text to Melanie. "Are you free?" Melanie responded almost at once. Sure. Normal place? Yeah. See you soon. Vanessa realized she was grinning again, but this time it didn't matter. She checked the office to ensure that everyone was busy, waiting for a couple of people to pass on their way back from the printer before slipping behind the bustle with practiced ease. She took the stairs up to the roof and took the key out of her pocket. Vanessa, security, and Melanie were the only ones who had keys to up here. Of course, no one else knew that Melanie had a key. Melanie was already waiting for her when she arrived, perched on one of the 2 chairs Vanessa had smuggled up here after dark one night. How was the meeting? Boring. I wish you were there. Well, that makes one of us. You watch it, or I might just promote you again, and you'll have to come to the meetings. Melanie chuckled. That's not quite the threat you think it is. Vanessa shifted her chair closer, taking Melanie's hand in hers. She sighed as she stroked Melanie's soft skin, admiring the fine bones in her hand. She truly was attractive in every respect. Vanessa had yet to find something about Melanie that she didn't find alluring. What are you thinking? Vanessa started guiltily. Nothing. I can tell you're thinking something. You've been getting that deep in thought look more and more often lately. What's up? Well, maybe it was time to come clean. She would have to do so sooner or later. May as well get it over and done with, right? I want you to move in with me, Vanessa blurted. Melanie's eyes widened. But the secrecy. Vanessa squeezed her hand. I've thought it all out. We can still keep it going. We both have our own cars. We'll just need to make sure that we don't leave for work at the same time, and be careful not to wear each other's clothes. And there's no reason for anyone to know we're living together. We'd have to be really careful. There would be so many more opportunities to slip up. Vanessa's heart sank a little. If you don't want to, that's perfectly okay. We can keep... No, that's not what I mean, Melanie said quickly. I want to, Vanessa. I'm just trying to think through the practicalities. You want to? Of course I do. Did you really think I wouldn't? Vanessa had been fairly certain of Melanie's answer, but she'd had her moments of doubt. You never know. You could have gotten tired of me. Melanie leaned in and pulled Vanessa close for a kiss. There's no chance of that. I love you. Vanessa had been thinking about saying it for a while. She was fairly certain that Melanie felt the same, but she didn't just want to say it. When she did say it, she wanted it to be perfect. When Melanie moved in, Vanessa wanted to cook her favorite dinner and then take her to bed. After they made love for the first time, what would be their home rather than just Vanessa's home, then Vanessa would tell her. Melanie would say it back, she was sure, and it would be the true start of their new lives together. I'll come over tomorrow and help you start packing your things. That sounds perfect. They leaned their heads together and sat like that until Vanessa's phone started beeping. It's Emily. I'd better go. I'll see you tonight? Tonight. They kissed once more and Vanessa left. As per usual, they didn't leave at the same time. Melanie would wait a few minutes before returning to the office. Vanessa threw herself into work for the rest of the day, determined to get everything she needed to get done finished, so that she could focus fully on packing with Melanie. Sure, packing may not be the most glamorous of dates, but it was one of the most meaningful. She was busy mediating a dispute between 2 employees over email when her phone pinged. She glanced at it to see a WhatsApp from Jessica. Vanessa frowned. Jessica was an ex with whom things had ended bitterly. Jessica had taken Vanessa's prioritizing her work over their relationship very personally, and had said some awful things before she left that had taken Vanessa a while to recover from. She hadn't heard a thing from her since then. They'd had an unspoken agreement not to contact each other again, or at least Vanessa thought they had. She was on the point of blocking Jessica without bothering to read the message when the picture Jessica had sent with her text caught Vanessa's eye. That was her and Melanie. How the hell did Jessica manage to get that photo? They were outside Vanessa's favorite Italian place, kissing by the car. Vanessa remembered that night. They were always so careful. They had checked to be sure the parking lot was deserted before they kissed goodnight as they always did. Clearly, Jessica was better at hiding than Vanessa and Melanie were at scanning an area. She read the text Jessica had sent along with a message. I know why you're hiding it. It'll end badly for your company if it gets out you're taking advantage of an employee. Break up with her, or this photo hits the press tomorrow. Fuck. Fucking hell, this was bad. Okay, she could deal with this. Vanessa had dealt with her fair share of disasters in her career. This was nothing more than that. Just another disaster. She called Jessica, who answered on the first ring. I had a feeling I'd be hearing from you. Did she have to sound so smug? Well, congratulations. You successfully got me to call. Now, what is it that you want, Jessica? You know what I want. I want you to break up with that whore you're currently fucking. Don't you dare call her that. Oh, no? So you didn't fuck her in the restaurant bathroom like a common whore? Shit. Vanessa had known that was ill-advised. But Melanie had just been so tempting, she hadn't been able to wait until they got home. Besides, it wasn't like anyone from work even knew they were at the restaurant, let alone the ones screwing in the bathroom. Apparently, they needed to worry about people outside of work, too. Vanessa had never imagined that Jessica might be following her. She knew things had ended badly between them, but that had been 5 years ago, for fuck's sake. How long have you been following me? Wouldn't you like to know? Seriously, Jessica, you tell me how long this has been going on, or this conversation ends here. Jessica hesitated for a moment before relenting. 6 months. Why now? Maybe I just realized that we're perfect for each other. We're meant to be together, Vanessa. All you need to do is break up with the whore. Don't you dare, Jessica. With Melanie, and we'll be free to be together. Something must have happened to trigger this, but Vanessa supposed it didn't really matter. Whether Jessica had just gone through a bad breakup or lost a loved one, or whatever caused people to go off the deep end, Vanessa still had to deal with the situation as it was, and it was a disaster waiting to happen. Let's meet. We can talk about this. Oh, we will be meeting, but only after you break up with Melanie. And I want proof, Vanessa. I won't just take your word for it. How am I supposed to prove that I've broken up with her? Do it over text and take a screenshot. Or make a recording as you're doing it and send it to me. You're a smart woman, Vanessa. You'll figure it out. Vanessa was sure that she and Melanie could fake the proof. That wasn't the problem. Jessica was following her. If she and Melanie didn't break up for real, Jessica would know. Vanessa wondered if she could go to the police, but quickly discounted that possibility. Taking this to the police would only make her and Melanie's relationship public, which was exactly what she was trying to avoid. Vanessa sighed. There was really only one way out of this. How much do you want, Jessica? What? You heard me. How much to make all this go away? 1 million? 2? 3? I don't want your money, Jessica spat. I want you. No, you don't. If you truly wanted me, you'd never want me against my will. You're insane, Jessica. You have until tomorrow to send me the proof of the breakup. If you don't send it, or if you do and I see any evidence that you haven't followed through, which, believe me, I will, this photo hits every news outlet in the city the next day. Goodbye for now, Vanessa. I'll be in touch. Jessica hung up. Vanessa swore loudly and resisted the urge to throw her phone across the room. Having a broken phone right now would not help matters. She locked her office door and started pacing. What could she do? She knew that if the scandal broke, it would be detrimental to her career and her company. But she and the company would survive. For Melanie, she was willing to risk it. What she wasn't willing to risk was Melanie's career. Vanessa knew Jessica. She could be vindictive when she wanted to be, and she obviously wanted to be in this case. She could easily take whatever information she had on them, which was surely more than a single photo, if she'd been following Vanessa for 6 months and spin it any way she wanted. She could make it seem like Melanie was just sleeping with the boss to get ahead in her career. HR would have a field day with it. They would demand Melanie's dismissal, and who would hire her with such a scandal attached to her name? No, Vanessa couldn't do that to Melanie. She knew how important Melanie's career was to her, and she would never forgive herself if she ruined everything Melanie had worked so hard to achieve. She knew what she had to do, but was she strong enough to do it? That was the question, wasn't it? Did she truly love Melanie? Love her enough to let her go? Chapter 9. Although Vanessa wasn't there yet, Melanie had already started packing. She couldn't help it. She was too excited to wait. The sooner she got her stuff packed up, the sooner she could move in with Vanessa. It was like a dream come true. Melanie had never really thought love was in the cards for her, not with her devotion to her career. Somehow Vanessa made both those things possible. It was a miracle. one she had never anticipated, but now that she had it, she was going to grab onto it with both hands. She had gone to a packaging store to get some supplies on the way home and was now armed with enough boxes and tape to last her several moves. Not that she planned to be moving again anytime soon. Well, unless she and Vanessa decided to move together. Maybe they'd get a place together someday. The world was filled with endless possibilities, and all of them seemed within Vanessa's grasp. Looking back, she should have known it was all too good to be true. Her phone pinged with a message from Vanessa. "Melanie, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I've changed my mind. I can't be with you anymore. Consider our relationship over." Annoyance boiled up in Melanie's gut as she typed an angry response. "I don't know who this is, but you better give Vanessa's phone back to her. She needs it for work." "Melanie, this is Vanessa. I'm sorry. I know this is sudden, but I really think we'd be better off going our separate ways." "Seriously, give back Vanessa's phone or I'm calling the police." Her phone rang. Melanie answered, fully prepared to give the phone thief a piece of her mind. She was completely unprepared to hear Vanessa's voice on the other end. "Melanie, it's me. It's Vanessa." "Oh, did you get your phone back already? Who had it?" "No, you don't understand. No one had my phone. No one is sending you false messages from me. I can't be with you anymore, Melanie." Melanie was shocked into silence. It didn't make any sense. Just a few hours ago, she and Vanessa were discussing moving in together. Vanessa loved her. She hadn't said it, but Melanie knew she did. Didn't she? Why? It's difficult to explain." "Well, give it your best shot," Melanie said in a clipped voice. "I'm sorry, but I can't." Vanessa sounded like she was trying to hold back tears. "I'm breaking up with you, Melanie, and that's all there is to it. I have to go." She hung up. No fucking way. Melanie wasn't going to give up that easily. Something was wrong. She'd heard it in Vanessa's voice. Vanessa wouldn't just leave her like that. If she was having doubts, she would at least try to discuss them with Melanie. She wouldn't end things like this without any reason. Melanie dropped the box she'd been packing and got into her car. She drove the familiar route to Vanessa's place on autopilot, her mind spinning. What could be the problem? Something must have prompted this. Did someone from work find out? No, that didn't make sense. If that was the case, then Vanessa would simply tell her, and they would figure out what to do together. There had to be more to it. She hurried to Vanessa's front door and rang the bell. No answer. Melanie pounded on the door with her fist. "Open up, Vanessa! I know something is wrong, and I'm not leaving until we work it out." Nothing. Well, Melanie wasn't giving up that easily. She kept pounding on the door for a solid 10 minutes before there was any response. "Go away, Melanie. We're not together anymore. You can't do this." Vanessa's voice was clogged with tears, which only further convinced Melanie that something was seriously wrong. "Just talk to me," Melanie pleaded through the closed door. "Tell me what happened. I know you don't want us to break up. Whatever it is, we can figure it out together. Go now, Melanie, before I have to call the police." "I'm not leaving until we've sorted this out. I'm not giving up on you, Vanessa. I'm not giving up on us." She didn't miss the hastily stifled sob on the other side of the door. Melanie tried to talk to Vanessa through the door for a further 10 minutes to no avail. Vanessa had simply gone silent. Melanie didn't even know if she could still hear her. For all she knew, Vanessa could be in another room now. The sound of sirens startled her out of her monologue. She spun around to see a police car headed right for her. Melanie's jaw dropped. Had Vanessa seriously called the cops? She must have, because police cars didn't make it a habit of driving around with their sirens on for nothing, and sure enough, they were stopping right outside Vanessa's apartment building. It was a move that left Melanie only one play, and Vanessa knew it. Melanie had to get out of here before the police got to her. She couldn't allow herself to be questioned by the police. She didn't want to lie to them, but her honest answers would out her and Vanessa as dating. Melanie didn't know if the information would get from the police to the press or the rest of the public, but she couldn't take that risk. She couldn't believe Vanessa would take that risk. Vanessa didn't know that Melanie would manage to evade the police after all. She was gambling a lot. And for what? Just to get rid of Melanie sooner? It wasn't like Melanie was threatening her. Vanessa could have just waited for Melanie to leave on her own, but no, she had to chase her out with the police. Melanie bit back tears as she hurried around the back of the building. She heard police officers getting out of the car and broke into a jog. She'd have to take an Uber home and pick up her car another time. She trusted that Vanessa would tell them that her car had been parked there for a week or something to stop them from investigating it. Surely Vanessa still wanted to keep their relationship a secret, right? Melanie didn't know what Vanessa wanted anymore. She angrily wiped away tears as she navigated to the Uber app on her phone. Nothing made sense anymore. Vanessa didn't want her and was calling the police to get rid of her. Everything that Melanie had thought her life would be a couple of hours ago was suddenly turned on its head. The Uber driver was kind enough not to ask what she was crying about. Melanie got home and slammed the door behind her. She considered calling Vanessa, but what was the point? Vanessa had made things abundantly clear. She didn't want Melanie anymore. Why she didn't was anyone's guess. But Melanie wasn't going to go begging after her if Vanessa was literally willing to call the police to get rid of her. She knew now why she had never dated seriously before. All those relationships that had never worked out. They hadn't been unfortunate after all. They had been the universe's way to try to warn her away from the whole institution, away from this. If only Melanie had listened. If she had, maybe she wouldn't know what it felt like to have a broken heart. People talked about it all the time in books and movies. Melanie had heard the pain described as a physical thing, but what she felt was much worse than that. This feeling of desolation, with nothing, no hope, no end in sight. Well, this was worse than any kind of physical pain. It made Melanie want to curl up in a ball and give up. She could cover herself in blankets and never again emerge to the wider world. In fact, that's exactly what she was going to do. Melanie practically crawled into bed. She'd just lie here until she expired from hunger and see how smart Vanessa thought calling the police to remove her was then. Several hours later, her melodrama was overridden by the growling of her stomach. Melanie grumbled to herself as she got out of bed and turned on the lights. It was the middle of the night, but she hadn't had supper yet. She didn't have the energy to cook, so she made herself a sandwich and grabbed a box of cookies out of the cupboard. Melanie returned to bed, munching on her cookies, feeling thoroughly sorry for herself. She couldn't give up, though. It just wasn't in her. No, Melanie would endure despite her broken heart. It may just kill her to do it, but she would keep going. She wouldn't let this break her. That still left the question of what was going to happen when she turned up to work the next day. Would her job even still be there for her? Yes, of course it had to be. Melanie remembered the promise Vanessa had made to her right at the beginning, when they had started dating. If things ended between them, Vanessa wouldn't let it affect Melanie's career. Of course, neither of them had bargained for this, whatever this was, because this was no ordinary breakup. Melanie was sure of that much. Something had happened to prompt this. It had to have. What it was, she couldn't guess, and right now she didn't care to. She didn't know what had happened, but she did know that whatever it was, Vanessa didn't value their relationship enough to fight it and deal with it together. She may care for Melanie, but she didn't love Melanie, not the way Melanie loved her, or she would have fought for them. Melanie was going to put her faith in Vanessa's promise and keep going despite her broken heart. She would go to work tomorrow. She would avoid Vanessa, who could easily send messages through Emily if she needed to communicate anything. She was still good at her job. Melanie loved what she did and tried to remind herself of that. It was cold comfort compared to being in Vanessa's arms, but it was all she had right now, so she did her best to appreciate it. Melanie tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come until the early hours of the morning. She was exhausted when the alarm woke her, and seriously considered calling in sick, but decided that she wasn't going to let Vanessa know just how much this whole thing had shaken her. She was going to put a heavy layer of makeup on to hide her red eyes and go to work with her head held high. If Vanessa thought this would break Melanie, then she had another thing coming. As Melanie expected, she didn't see Vanessa at all at work. Vanessa must be taking pains to avoid her, just as Melanie was doing. A couple of times, Emily came down to deliver strictly work-related messages. If she found it odd that she was suddenly a messenger when, as recently as yesterday, Melanie had been called to Vanessa's office more than any other employee, she didn't comment on it. Melanie lost herself in her work. Work was all she had, all she would ever have. She was never going to let herself get hurt like this again. She had suspected love wasn't in the cards for her before, but now she knew it with a burning certainty. It was too risky an endeavor. Days passed in the same fashion. Life felt dull and gray without Vanessa in it. Surely things would get better. Time heals all wounds and all that. Melanie was beyond miserable. She did her best to take comfort in her work, and it was indeed a good distraction. But when she got home at night, nothing distracted her from the crushing loneliness of lying in her too-big bed without Vanessa's soft warmth nearby. She needed Vanessa in her life. Even if they couldn't be together, they could still be friends, right? Friends with benefits seemed too much to hope for. But Melanie would settle for being able to laugh with Vanessa and see the way her eyes lit up when Melanie related a particularly scandalous bit of office gossip. They could still do late nights with pizzas and Netflix, moaning about various irritations in their days. There was no reason for this breakup to ruin everything they were. So she resolved to talk to Vanessa. Surely they could work something out. A lot of exes recovered into an easy friendship. She and Vanessa could do so as well. How difficult could it be? Chapter 10. So this was what it felt like to die. Vanessa's heart may still beat, but all of her hopes and dreams left with those police cars. She knew that Melanie would never forgive her for calling them, but what else could she have done? If she had had to listen to Melanie plead with her for one more minute, she knew that she would have given in. She would have opened the door and begged Melanie to take her back. Vanessa couldn't do that, for Melanie's sake. She had to protect Melanie, even if it meant Melanie would hate her. That's what you did when you loved someone. Why did love have to hurt so much? No wonder she'd never had time for it before. If she'd known she was in for this kind of pain, she never would have touched Melanie at all. No, that wasn't true. As close as she was to wishing that her broken heart would stop beating, Vanessa didn't wish that none of this had ever happened. She wouldn't sacrifice her precious memories with Melanie for anything, no matter how much pain they were causing her now. Those memories would need to be enough to sustain her, because they were all she would have for the rest of her life. She would need to think of a long-term solution for work. She couldn't keep working closely with Melanie after this. Maybe she could promote Melanie to a position equal in standing to hers, meaning that Melanie could manage herself and didn't need to report to anyone. It would take some doing, but Melanie had the skills and the drive to take on a position like that. Vanessa would just have to convince the board. That was a task for another day, though. She wouldn't go making changes right now, not so soon after she'd pulled the rug out from under Melanie. She hated the hurt in Melanie's voice as she had demanded to know what was wrong. Of course Melanie knew something was wrong. Vanessa should have guessed she would. Melanie knew that Vanessa would never just end things, and she wasn't one to give up without a fight. Seeing how Melanie fought for them only made Vanessa love her even more, and it only made this hurt even more. Vanessa watched as the police drove away. She had lied to them, of course. She had told them that a homeless person was banging on her door and wouldn't leave her alone until she gave them money. She couldn't risk having anyone find out about her and Melanie through the police. And thankfully, Melanie was smart enough to make herself scarce when they showed up. Vanessa sat on the couch, staring blankly into space. What did she do now? She felt like a ghost. Jessica had destroyed her life in one swift stroke, and now only a shadow remained. Did she still eat? Still sleep? Or would she exist on pure misery for the rest of her days? Vanessa told herself to stop being dramatic. Of course she still had to eat and sleep. She needed to be practical about this. Being practical was difficult when it felt like her heart had been ripped out of her chest, and by her own hand, no less. Vanessa lay down on the couch and closed her eyes, hoping that when she woke up, this would all turn out to be a terrible nightmare. She'd startle awake, and Melanie would soothe her back to sleep with soft words and touches. With that hope, Vanessa gently drifted off. Vanessa woke to the same nightmare she had fallen asleep to, and there was no escaping it. She managed to drag herself into the shower and went through the motions of getting ready for work. She didn't know how much use she'd be at work today, but she at least had to try. What would she do if she bumped into Melanie? Bursting into tears didn't seem like a good option, but Vanessa couldn't honestly see herself doing anything else. She'd just have to avoid Melanie, that's all. She'd done it before and she could do it again. Surely this feeling of emptiness would ease with time. It felt unendurable, but there was nothing she could do other than endure it and hope that it would end. Days passed. Vanessa existed. She learned to refocus on her work and let that distract her from her misery. It almost worked. Some days she could almost forget about the impression Melanie had left on her life. Before Melanie, Vanessa had been satisfied with her life. She realized now that she'd never been truly happy, but she had been satisfied. Now that she knew better, she could never be satisfied with a life without love. She would simply have to learn to live with the ache of loneliness. Despite everything, she didn't regret her relationship with Melanie. Even if knowing what she was missing, she wouldn't trade those precious memories they had made for anything. Vanessa was so miserable that she'd all but forgotten about Jessica. It seemed that Jessica, however, hadn't forgotten about her. Every time Vanessa's phone pinged with a WhatsApp, she felt an irrational surge of hope that it was Melanie, wanting to talk, to work things out. Of course, that was a foolish hope. Even if Melanie did forgive her for the police incident, Vanessa couldn't accept any offer to talk things out and try again. She needed to protect Melanie's career. She hadn't gone through this much heartache to let everything come crashing down now.
Vanessa, I received your proof. We need to talk. Meet me at Café Deluxe at 12.
Café Deluxe was just down the road. It would be easy enough for Vanessa to take lunch there, but the demand sent a flash of anger through her. Hadn't Jessica done enough? She'd already ruined Vanessa's life. What more did she want? To ruin her career, too? Her career was cold comfort when Melanie was absent. Fuck off, Jessica. I did as you asked. We're done.
We're not done, unless you want those photos in every news outlet by tomorrow. I'll see you at 12, or I'll see a reporter. Your choice.
Vanessa clenched her phone so tightly that it made an ominous cracking noise, and she quickly put it down on the desk. She cleared her schedule around lunchtime. Whatever Jessica had to say, it probably wouldn't leave Vanessa in a state to concentrate on work. While she was waiting for lunchtime to arrive, she couldn't help but check up on Melanie's work. As usual, Melanie was doing an impeccable job, certainly much better than Vanessa was doing. She felt like she was letting the entire company down. She was distracted and only managing because Emily was picking up a lot of her slack. When lunch rolled around, Vanessa walked down the road to Café Deluxe. It hurt to be in here. This was one of Melanie's favorite spots to take lunch. Vanessa wondered if Jessica knew that and had chosen the place deliberately. She had been following Vanessa after all. Who knew how much she knew? Jessica was already waiting in a seat by the window. She smiled at Vanessa, who glared back at her. "What do you want?" Vanessa spat, throwing herself into a seat opposite Jessica.
You know what I want, Vanessa. I want you.
You're insane.
I'm in a position to make demands, as you well know. Now, are you going to listen, or do you want me to go to the nearest news outlet instead?
I'll listen, but that's all I'm promising.
Good. We're making progress already. My terms are simple. You give us a shot, a real shot, and I'll delete the photos.
What does that even mean?
We date and see where things go.
Vanessa couldn't believe what she was hearing. Are you actually insane? You do realize you're literally blackmailing me, right? What kind of relationship could we have?
You just need to give us a chance. Sure, the circumstances we're starting with may not be ideal, but we can make it work. We're meant to be together, Vanessa. In time, you will see that.
Jessica reached across the table and took both of Vanessa's hands in hers, bringing one up to her lips to kiss the knuckles. Vanessa was about to rip her hand away when she heard a gasp behind her. She spun around, and to her horror she saw Melanie, already turning and rushing out of the restaurant.
Don't you dare!
Vanessa wasn't listening to Jessica anymore. She leaped up and dashed after Melanie. Melanie, wait! Melanie didn't wait. But Vanessa was faster and caught up to her, quickly putting herself in front of Melanie. "Please wait. Just listen to me." "Get out of my way, Vanessa," Melanie snapped. "Go back to your date. I'm sure she's missing you." "She is not my date." "There's no need to lie about it, Vanessa. We're not together anymore. You're allowed to date whoever you want." "No, that's not—" Too late. Melanie was already leaving. Vanessa could have gone after her again, but what would be the point? Melanie didn't want to talk to her. He wasn't willing to listen, and in all honesty, Vanessa couldn't blame her. From Melanie's perspective, what she'd seen had been pretty clear. Vanessa wondered if Jessica had seen Melanie over her shoulder and kissed her hand on purpose. She wouldn't put it past Jessica to do just that. She stormed back into the restaurant, to find Jessica waiting where Vanessa had left her. "You listen to me, and you listen well. I will never, ever date you. I don't care what you do with those photos. I don't care if my entire company goes down in flames. Nothing will convince me to be in the same room as you ever again." Jessica recoiled as though Vanessa had slapped her. "Think this through, Vanessa. Think of Melanie's career." "I'll do as you said. I'll stay away from Melanie, as long as you keep those photos to yourself. But asking me to be with you is a step too far. I won't do it. You can release the photos for that if you want, but know that if you do, I'm going straight back to Melanie to work things out between us. Your call, Jessica." Vanessa didn't wait for Jessica's response. She left, nearly bumping into several people in her hurry to get as far away from Jessica as possible. If Vanessa never saw her again, it would be too soon. She hesitated as she got back to the office. She could go to Melanie's office and try to explain again that she hadn't been on a date. But what would be the point? She couldn't tell Melanie the truth. That would just hurt her more than she'd already been hurt. It was one thing thinking that Vanessa didn't want her. That was sure to hurt Melanie, but she would get over it. Knowing that Vanessa wanted her with all her heart would be so much worse. Vanessa wanted to cause Melanie as little pain as possible. Let Melanie hate her. If that made it easier for her to get through this, then Vanessa would accept her hatred. The meeting today proved one thing beyond a doubt. Breaking up with Melanie wasn't the end. Vanessa should have realized that much. That's how it worked with blackmail. Blackmailers were never satisfied with what they were given. They always pushed for more and more until their target finally broke and accepted the consequences of the information getting out over the consequences of doing what the blackmailer was asking them. Vanessa needed to find a way to get rid of those photos. Jessica clearly wasn't going to delete them willingly, which meant Vanessa may need to play dirty to get her way. If she could get the photos deleted, it would just be Jessica's word against hers. And who was going to believe a jealous ex-lover over a famous, successful CEO? Vanessa put her work aside for now and spent the next couple of hours investigating private detectives. Surely one of them had to be able to track down where Jessica was keeping the photos and delete them. Apparently, finding someone to do this was harder than she'd thought. Since the photos had been taken in a public place, Jessica hadn't done anything illegal by taking them. Sneaking into Jessica's home or onto her phone, however, would be illegal, and none of the private detectives Vanessa contacted were willing to do it. She supposed she understood. If she was asked to do something illegal in her line of work, she would also refuse. That just meant that she'd need to look harder and resort to shadier investigators. Vanessa wasn't at all well-versed in finding dodgy contractors, but a couple of hours later found her in a decidedly seedy bar meeting someone who only referred to himself as T. T hailed her from the bar as she walked in. Vanessa immediately felt overdressed and out of place. T himself didn't exactly inspire much confidence, dressed in a stained shirt and worn jeans.
"Vanessa, I take it?"
"That's right. May I get your name?"
"Call me T. So you have a job you need doing? Someone you need to be gotten rid of?"
Vanessa's insides went cold. "No, not someone. Something. There are some photos on a phone that I need deleted."
Maybe easier to delete them if the owner is dead.
Vanessa was suddenly regretting finding T, but she was here now, and she did need his help. "No one gets hurt or you don't get paid," she said firmly. T shrugged.
"You prefer. So you want photos deleted and that's it?"
"That's it."
"I charge $300 an hour, cash only. As to how many hours, that depends on where she has those photos backed up. I'll need to do some investigation to find out if they're just on her phone or if she has them somewhere else."
Vanessa nodded. "I've got cash. When can you start?"
"Soon as you can pay." Vanessa handed over an envelope of cash. This should be enough to get you started. Here's my card. Call me when you have an update. Make sure to call this number here, my personal number, and not my assistant. Will do. Nice doing business with you. You too, Vanessa said, slightly untruthfully. She left, glancing over her shoulder a couple of times, wondering if she'd just flushed several $100s down the drain. She wasn't mainly worried about the money. If it got out that she was hiring people to break into other people's phones and houses, she could get into trouble with the law. What choice did she have, though? Jessica was leaving her with very few options. Vanessa's first impression of T hadn't given her high hopes, and she was therefore surprised to get a call from him just a couple of hours after their meeting. Vanessa, I've got news, and it's not good. Seems our friend is taking no chances. She's got the photos backed up to multiple cloud services, as well as hard copies hidden in various safes. Vanessa didn't ask how T knew this. She didn't want to know, so she let him continue. All of these are surmountable problems. I know a hacker who can get to the cloud copies, and I'm decent at breaking into safes. The real problem will be the law firm that she's left the photos with. From what I'm able to understand, they're to release the photos if they don't hear from her every week to keep them for another week. Wow, Jessica really was taking no chances. Vanessa was actually quite flattered by how resourceful Jessica clearly thought her to be. Why is that a problem? Can't you just hack the law firm or break into their safes? It's a problem because they're keeping the photos in a bank vault. I may be able to break into safes here and there, but bank robbery is a little beyond my skill set. You'll need to hire a separate team for that. No way, I'm not hiring anyone to rob a bank. It's your choice, but that'll be the only way to get rid of the photos for good. Vanessa couldn't believe she was even considering this. It was insane, but she had left sane behind when she had first decided to hire T. It wasn't like she'd be hurting anyone or stealing any money. She'd just be getting rid of photos of herself and Melanie. That wasn't so wrong, was it? Do you know anyone who could do it? I have some contacts who could probably put together a team if you're interested. Should I reach out to them? Not yet. Give me a few days to think about it. Don't think too long. People who have something on you tend to want more and more. It's only a matter of time before they start demanding something else. And then you'll be in a pickle if it's something you don't want to do, which it likely will be, and you haven't managed to eliminate the photos yet. I know that. I'll try to decide as quickly as I can and get back to you. Sure. Chat later, then. Vanessa stared off into the distance long after she and T had hung up. Could she take this step? She'd be a real criminal then. It was one thing hiring a shady investigator. Robbing a bank was a whole other level. But the alternative was pretending to date Jessica. Just the thought of letting Jessica touch her, of smiling at her and pretending to make polite conversation, made Vanessa want to be ill. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to talk to Melanie about it, but of course, Melanie wasn't speaking to her. It had been a long time since Vanessa had felt so helpless and lost, and she didn't like the feeling. One way or another, she needed to make a decision, and no matter what she chose, that decision was going to change her life, for better or for worse. Chapter 11. Melanie had thought that Vanessa couldn't hurt her any more than she already had. After all, they weren't together anymore. What could Vanessa possibly do to hurt her? It turned out that Vanessa absolutely could still hurt her. Melanie knew that they weren't together anymore, but she hadn't thought that Vanessa would move on this quickly. To see her sitting with another woman, holding hands, having her hands kissed, so soon after their breakup, well, it hurt. She angrily swiped at tears as she hurried back to her office. She had been wrong. Melanie had taken the opportunity to follow Vanessa when she saw her headed toward Café Deluxe for lunch. She had thought that they could talk and maybe rekindle at least a friendship between them. Instead, she had gotten a slap in the face from cold, hard reality. She and Vanessa would make terrible friends. She saw that now. If Vanessa could move on that quickly from someone she was supposed to care for, Melanie wasn't sure they had as much in common as she had originally thought. It was an awful feeling, thinking badly of Vanessa. But Melanie couldn't deny what she had seen. She had half hoped that Vanessa would come after her again with some explanation that made sense. Some explanation that didn't involve Vanessa throwing their love aside like it had meant nothing to her,
but Vanessa had let her go. Melanie spent the rest of the day moping and stopped by the grocery store on the way home to buy some more cookies. How was she supposed to move on with her life when she was working for Vanessa? Even if they managed to avoid each other, she would always know that Vanessa was just a floor above her, in the office where the two of them had had more than one steamy encounter. Melanie wasn't willing to give up her dream job, but she didn't know how she could continue with things as they were. It hurt to work for Vanessa when Vanessa clearly didn't value her. She may value her as an employee, but as a person, Melanie was easily replaceable. Vanessa had proven that much today. She needed advice, but she didn't really have any friends outside of work. Her career didn't leave time for that. Melanie knew she couldn't ask anyone at work for advice about this, not if she and Vanessa were going to keep their relationship secret. Even though they were no longer together, Melanie knew that it would still be a bad idea to make their romantic history public. So she resorted to asking strangers on the internet. Melanie went onto Reddit and told her story. She asked for advice and waited. Advice started coming in at once, so varied that it took her breath away. Some people advised she start a relationship with someone new at once to get over Vanessa. Others said she should leave the company and go to work somewhere else. A couple suggested that she take a leave of absence and take some time to herself to figure out what it was she wanted from life. Out of all the answers she received, though, one really resonated with her. I was in love once before with my wife. You reminded me of her, the way you talked about Vanessa. What you had with her is special. Don't give up on it. I lost my wife to cancer a year ago, but if her memory can help you find your soulmate, I can think of no better way to honor her. Fight for love. Go to Vanessa. Tell her that you're not giving up on her. Tell her that you're going to fight for her, even if she's given up on you. I may be completely wrong here, but from what you've written, it doesn't sound like she doesn't want you anymore. It sounds like there's some external factor you don't know anything about that's behind this breakup. Don't stop unless she tells you that she doesn't want you. If she does that, then it really is over. But until that happens, the two of you still have a shot. I've learned that love is worth fighting for. It's the kind of thing you may only experience once in a lifetime. Don't give up that chance for anything. Melanie read this answer through half a dozen times before turning to stare blankly out of the window. Was he right? One thing was for sure. She wasn't going to find out by sitting here doing nothing. Melanie found herself on her feet without ever fully deciding to stand up. Her brain caught up slowly as her legs took her to her car. She realized that she was driving to Vanessa's place and did nothing to turn off the autopilot that was taking her exactly where she needed to be. Melanie marched up to the door and rang the bell. Vanessa opened it. She didn't look up at first. She was rummaging through her bag and eventually came out with her wallet. She must be expecting a delivery. Good thing, too, or she probably wouldn't have opened the door without first checking who it was. When Vanessa looked up, her eyes widened and her hand went white, gripping the doorframe. Melanie didn't give Vanessa a chance to slam the door in her face. She pushed roughly inside and spun to face Vanessa. We need to talk. Melanie, no, Vanessa. It's time for me to speak and you to listen. You owe me that much. Vanessa sighed. Her shoulders slumped. I suppose you're right about that. Do you want to sit down? No. I want you to know that I love you. I'm in love with you, Vanessa, and I want to be with you. I'm going to fight for you. For us. I'm not going to let you go so easily. Until you tell me you don't want me, I'll be here fighting for you. You're too precious to give up. Melanie caught a glimpse of Vanessa's tear-filled eyes just before Vanessa turned away. You're making a mistake, Vanessa said in a shaky voice, her back still to Melanie. Tell me you don't want me, Vanessa. Tell me that you honestly don't want me, and I'll leave you alone. I'm not a stalker. But if you do want me, then turn around and talk to me. Tell me what's wrong. Vanessa was silent, her shoulders tense. Melanie waited anxiously, not knowing which way it would go. If Vanessa said the words she dreaded hearing, it would all be over. Melanie would have to leave and never come back. She would. Vanessa turned around. It's not that simple, Melanie. We can't be together. Why not? You want me and I want you. Why can't we be together? Tears spilled down Vanessa's cheeks. Your career means too much to you. I can't watch it burn just because of my own selfish desires. What are you talking about? Vanessa, come on. Sit down and tell me what happened.
Vanessa allowed Melanie to lead her to the couch and took a shuddering breath. The woman you saw with me the other day. Her name is Jessica. She's my ex. I got a message from her a few weeks back, on that day. She has photos of us kissing. She said that if I didn't break up with you, she'd release the photos. Melanie, my career might survive such a scandal, but yours wouldn't. I could never do that to you. I know how much your job means to you. I love you too much to take that away from you, no matter how much I want to be with you.
Melanie stared at Vanessa in disbelief. You think I care about a stupid job? I care about you, Vanessa. How could you ever think I'd choose my work over you?
But it's so important to you.
You're more important. I'm sorry if I've never made that clear to you.
Melanie reached down and grabbed Vanessa's hands, squeezing them tightly.
I love you more than I ever loved my work. I would give it all up for you.
I could never ask you to do that.
You're not asking, I'm telling you. This is how it's going to be. We're not going to capitulate to blackmailers. We're going to get out ahead of this. We'll talk to our PR department and figure out how best to make the announcement. Once Jessica figures out we're together, she'll release the photos. But it won't matter if we've told everyone about us first.
Vanessa was staring at Melanie with her mouth agape. Melanie forced herself to backtrack, remind herself that she wasn't the only one in this equation.
That is, if you want to. I understand if you're not willing to risk damaging your company that way.
Her words were cut off as Vanessa's lips crashed into hers. Melanie gasped into the kiss, returning it with equal ferocity. She felt like she was breathing for the first time since that awful day when she and Vanessa had first split. They clung to each other, only breaking away to gasp in urgent breaths. I want you, Vanessa murmured. If you're willing to risk it, then I'm willing to risk it. You should know that I wasn't there in that cafe willingly. Jessica was trying to get me to date her in exchange for deleting the photos, but I wouldn't do it. I was considering drastic action to get those photos erased.
Drastic action?
Let's just say you came just in time. I need to make a few calls. I've got a service to cancel.
Melanie didn't know what Vanessa was talking about, but she figured Vanessa would tell her if it was important. She lay back on the couch while Vanessa went to the other room to make her calls. Melanie was afraid to close her eyes, worried that when she opened them again, this would all vanish. She'd be back to being alone and heartbroken again. When Vanessa returned, she snuggled onto the couch with Melanie.
That's all done. You know, I was considering hiring people to rob a bank to get rid of those photos.
What?
Melanie couldn't think of anything less like Vanessa than robbing a bank. It was the only way to get those photos deleted, or at least so I was told. That's the phone call I was making. I was telling the guy I hired that he needn't put together a team to rob a bank, and that I'll no longer be needing his services. I think I ended the contract before he did anything illegal in my name, even.
Wow, and I thought I was bad going through boxes and boxes of cookies. At least I never planned to rob a bank.
Vanessa gave her a sheepish grin. I'm never going to live that one down, am I? Melanie kissed her.
Never.
Chapter 12.
Vanessa's palms were sweating, though Melanie didn't let go of her hand. The two of them stood backstage, waiting to be called. To say that their PR department had a field day with their announcement would be putting it lightly. Vanessa may be the CEO, but apparently that didn't protect her from harsh reprimands and listening to at least 5 different people bemoan her terrible life choices at great length. Vanessa and Melanie had held firm, though. They were going to come out officially as a couple. It was the only way to defeat Jessica's blackmail. So here they were, waiting to be called for a press announcement. None of the reporters in attendance knew anything other than that the CEO of Ardak Enterprises was making an important announcement. Finally, they were called. The backstage attendant motioned for them to walk on stage just as they were introduced by name. Vanessa never let go of Melanie's hand. Vanessa stepped nervously up to the microphone. She'd given plenty of press releases in her time, but she hadn't been this anxious about one in many years.
Hello. Thank you all for coming. It's a simple but happy announcement I need to make, so I'm going to keep it brief. This is Melanie Fox. Melanie and I are together. We're in love.
The spectators clapped and cheered. Vanessa waited for it to die down before continuing.
I've been advised by my PR department that because of the complexities of our relationship, we should make a public announcement. You see, Melanie is one of my employees.
The smiles on most of the watching faces vanished at that. Vanessa steeled herself. I believe what has to be said next will be better coming from Melanie. She stepped aside, allowing Melanie to take the microphone. Hi. As Vanessa said, we're in love. Now, I know what you're all thinking. She's my boss. She must be coercing me, right? Or at the very least, I must have some fear for my job, should things go bad between us. I don't feel any such thing. A few weeks ago, Vanessa and I had a falling out. It was bad. I thought we would never speak to each other again. Through all of it, my job was never once threatened. Vanessa never once abused her power over me. We simply went about our work lives as though we didn't know each other. What I'm trying to say is that I trust Vanessa. Even if we did break up, I know she wouldn't let it interfere with my work or hers. I am not being coerced in any way. I love Vanessa fully and freely, and I want everyone to know that our relationship is completely above board. There were murmurs in the crowd. We will take questions now, Vanessa said into the microphone. The reporters pounced immediately. How did your relationship start? Vanessa felt herself blushing. Thankfully, Melanie stepped in and answered that one. It started sexually. We weren't sure at first whether we were even going to take it further than just sex, but when we decided to try dating, neither of us ever looked back. What kind of example do you think you're setting for future employees at your company? Vanessa held her chin up. I would hope that I am showing my employees that while work is important, it is also important to search for personal happiness and find balance between the two. What plans do you have for the future? Another tricky question. Melanie took a stab at it. Honestly, we've been so involved in planning this press release that we haven't had much time to think about the future yet. I suspect the next few weeks are going to be crazy, but once things calm down, we'll have more time to figure out where we want to go as a couple. The questions went on and on. After half an hour, Vanessa had had enough. Thank you all for coming. If you have any further questions, you can direct them to my PR department, who will be happy to assist you. Vanessa put an arm around Melanie and led her off stage. They both breathed in long sighs of relief once they were out of the public sight. That was intense, Melanie murmured. Yeah, but at least it's done now. Jessica can't hurt us anymore. Do you think she'll try? Probably, but what can she do? Release the photos of us kissing? Soon enough, the press will have plenty of photos of their own. Now that I can kiss you in public, I plan to take full advantage of that fact. Oh, really? I never pegged you as into PDA. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. I guess I'm full of surprises. They exited the building and Vanessa pulled on Melanie's hand, spinning her around and right into her arms. There, in front of everyone who happened to be passing by in the street, Vanessa kissed her. Melanie sighed into the kiss, closing her eyes and relaxing into it. When they pulled apart, the world around them was going on. No one seemed to be paying much attention to them. Vanessa's heart soared in joy and triumph. I suppose you're very pleased with yourself, aren't you? Vanessa groaned, her happiness swiftly siphoning away. She had known that she'd have to face Jessica sooner or later, but she hadn't counted on the encounter happening moments after their press release. She should have expected it. She knew Jessica had been following her before. Why would she assume Jessica would stop now just because she had Vanessa in a bind? She still didn't have what she wanted, so it made sense for the stalking to continue. Leave us alone, Jessica, Vanessa said wearily. You don't have anything on me anymore, and I don't want anything to do with you. If I see you anywhere near me again, I'm going to call the police and get a restraining order. This isn't over, Jessica spat as Melanie and Vanessa got into the car. Your company will crash and burn because of this, and then you'll come running into my arms. Vanessa didn't even bother to answer such blatant insanity. She held the door open for Melanie and got into the car, ignoring Jessica completely. They were quiet as they drove home. Do you think you'll have to get a restraining order? Melanie asked eventually. Probably. I suppose we'll have to see what our next move is. Melanie ran a gentle hand down Vanessa's arm. It'll be okay. Whatever she throws at us, we'll face it together. Together, Vanessa agreed. The next day, the storm broke. The backlash from both within and outside of the company was brutal. From the moment Vanessa walked in, she was subject to looks, whispers, and the occasional glare. She was sure that Melanie must have it a lot worse. Vanessa was the boss, and no one could afford to openly antagonize her. Melanie didn't have the same protection. Sure enough, when Vanessa stopped by Melanie's office at lunchtime, she found Melanie utterly miserable. "They're saying that I only got this position because I was sleeping with the boss." Melanie looked close to tears. "I told them that I never even met you until I was already promoted, but no one believes me." "I'll talk to them," Vanessa promised. "I'll back you up." "No, don't. It'll just make it look worse if you jump in to defend me. I need to deal with this myself. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. It's just discouraging. All this time I thought my colleagues believed in me. Now they're ready to believe that I'm only here because I'm sleeping with you." Anger boiled in Vanessa's belly, and she longed to demand names. But that was probably a bad idea. If she had names, it would be too tempting to take action, and she had to respect Melanie's wish to deal with this herself. "Well, tell me if you need me to step in." "I will," Melanie promised. "Let's get out of here. I could use a break from the drama." Unfortunately, the outside world seemed filled with drama, too. They were mobbed by reporters the moment they stepped outside. Vanessa had known that she was famous, but she honestly hadn't had any idea that this many people would be interested in her love life. One reporter in particular stood out. "I'm writing an article for the Queer Daily. It's a local magazine. I'd love to get an interview." Vanessa stepped closer, letting go of Melanie's hand so that she could get closer to the reporter. "Can you tell me more about your magazine?" He beamed at her. "Of course. I'm Mike, and I'm one of 3 writers for the Queer Daily. We're still small, but we're growing. You and Melanie are truly an inspiration. You don't get many high-profile gay businesswomen, not to mention gay businesswomen of color. If we could spread your story, I'm sure it would touch the hearts of many." After all the nastiness of the office earlier, Vanessa could use some feel-good, fluffy article vibes. "You'll have your interview. Leave your details with my assistant, Emily. For now, my girlfriend and I need to get going. We have a lunch date." Vanessa extracted Melanie from a circle of reporters who seemed to be interrogating her on the state laws surrounding workplace fraternization. "Speak with our legal department for these matters, please," Vanessa said loudly, grabbing Melanie's wrist and pulling her away. "Thanks," Melanie muttered. "I thought they were about to eat me alive." "I would never let that happen. Come on, let's go to Café Deluxe. I believe we have some bad memories of that place that need to be rewritten with new ones." That had Melanie grinning. "Yeah, let's take back our spot." The next few weeks were surprising. The backlash was just as brutal as Vanessa had expected, but what she hadn't expected was the almost equally vehement support. The queer and black communities came together and shouted so loudly that the world had no choice but to sit back and take notice. She and Melanie were soon idolized by many, a position Vanessa was unused to and not entirely comfortable with. But the PR department assured her that it was a good thing. Vanessa did need to get that restraining order. The police usually dragged their heels on restraining orders, but since her case was so high profile, it came through relatively quickly. Jessica was busted for breaking the restraining order the day it was filed and taken away in handcuffs, shrieking obscenities. Vanessa shook her head, wondering what had happened to Jessica to make her like this. She supposed it didn't matter. Jessica would soon be in jail and out of her and Melanie's lives for good. Things were rocky for a few weeks, but in the end, Ardak Enterprises came out stronger than it had ever been. Their target market shifted slightly to the younger, more liberal generation, to whom Melanie had been working so hard to appeal. They lost a few of their older clients, but those clients were replaced tenfold with new ones. 4 months since their big announcement found Vanessa alone in a jewelry store. She didn't have long. She told Melanie she was just stopping at the nearby bakery for croissants. "Hello, how may I help you?" Vanessa looked up at the shop attendant. "I'd like to take a look at engagement rings." Epilogue. 2 years later. "No, it's cold." "Don't be a baby." Vanessa laughed as she splashed Melanie again. "This was your idea." "I take it back." Melanie shrieked as she tried to avoid another splash. The choppy water going up to her knees didn't help. "Too late for that." Vanessa lunged at her, tackling her into the water. Melanie shrieked again, but Vanessa let go as soon as Melanie's head went under, allowing her to surface. "You're the worst, you know that? But you love me." "I do," Melanie admitted. "Okay, come on then. Since I'm soaked and freezing already, let's get this show on the road." "The wetsuit will warm you up soon enough." Yeah, Melanie grumbled.
You know this water is actually quite warm.
It's not.
Melanie eyed Vanessa, who was wearing nothing but her swimsuit and didn't have so much as a goosebump. Okay, so maybe she was a baby about cold. If it wasn't on par with her customarily scalding shower water, it was cold. Two of them got onto their rented surfboards and started paddling. Surfing was a lot of paddling. Melanie knew that much from the YouTube videos they had watched, but knowing and experiencing were two different matters. I think we're far out enough, Vanessa said eventually. Now we just need to wait for a wave.
There's one coming. Go, go, go!
Melanie started paddling frantically, with Vanessa right behind her. They caught the wave and tried to stand on their surfboards. They promptly fell, crashed into each other, and splashed back into the water in a heap. They both surfaced laughing, their surfboards floating several feet away, attached to their ankles by long cords. Well, we suck at this.
That was our first time,
Melanie protested.
Who's ever good at anything the first time around? Let's give it another shot.
So they paddled again. They had washed up halfway back to the beach, which meant a lot more paddling before they were far enough back to start catching waves. The second time they fell in opposite directions rather than into each other and came up spluttering a little way apart. Melanie checked to see that her ring was still on her finger as she and Vanessa shared a very salty kiss.
I told you we should have gotten lessons,
Melanie said. I'm not conceding defeat yet. The day is still young. What do you say?
I say my wife is a maniac, but this was my idea,
Melanie conceded.
Let's give it another shot.
Several hours later, neither of them had managed to stand up on their boards for more than a few seconds at a time. Despite that, Melanie had had a great time. She and Vanessa seldom got to make mistakes without any real consequence, and her stomach muscles hurt from laughing, or maybe that was from clambering on and off the surfboard. Either way, it had been a good day.
Well, that's an item crossed off the to-do list. I say we go back to our hotel.
Melanie was cold and hungry, and their hotel had a huge bathtub, big enough for both of them to sit comfortably in. Sure, babe. They had a nice warm bath together and went through a couple of tourist brochures that the hotel left for them. Turned out that there were plenty of things to do in Hawaii that didn't involve getting wet and cold, much to Melanie's relief. She had loved the idea of surfing, but hadn't considered the temperature. Everyone else seemed fine in what they insisted was very warm water, but it felt icy to Melanie compared to the warm fuzzy robe she was putting on right now. Vanessa pulled her into bed, bundling the blanket up around the two of them. Are you warm enough?
I am now.
I won't make you do that again.
I'll hold you to that, but it was a good time. Not necessarily something I want a repeat experience of, but I'm glad we did it. I just wish we'd had a camera with us. That fifth fall of yours was quite something to see. It looked like you were trying to do some bizarre ballet move in midair.
I'll have you know that you looked pretty ridiculous, too. I'm just being gracious enough not to gloat about it.
Oh, you are you? Well, I suppose I should thank you for such consideration.
You really should, because your seventh fall...
Okay, I get it. We were both ridiculous. Let's leave it at that.
Vanessa chuckled. Let's. So what do you want to do tomorrow?
Something warm. Maybe check out some of the restaurants on the beach. We could get breakfast and then sunbathe for a while.
That sounds good to me. Vanessa sighed as she pulled Melanie closer into her arms. I'm glad we took the time away for our first anniversary. That's a good precedent.
Me too. You know, when we get back, I was thinking we should adopt a cat. Or two. 2 cats.
Cats?
I mean, we've discussed children, and we both agreed that we don't want them. We're not willing to sacrifice that kind of time, and our careers would suffer for it. But that doesn't mean we can't start our own family. And cats aren't a lot of work. If we get 2, they could entertain each other while we're at the office. And they could cuddle with us at night.
That sounds perfect. Vanessa leaned in and kissed her. We'll go to a shelter as soon as we're unpacked back home. Or would you rather wait until you're more settled in with your new job? Melanie had been nervous at first, telling Vanessa that she was leaving the company to start her own. She loved Ardak Enterprises, but she had an idea for a business that wouldn't compete with Vanessa's, but would run adjacent to hers. She could even supply Vanessa with some parts for the electronics her company made. She shouldn't have been surprised when Vanessa supported her fully. She was disappointed to lose her head of marketing, but she wanted Melanie to follow her heart and build her own career, just as Vanessa had done.
No, that's all right. Like I said, cats aren't a lot of work. I'm thinking we don't get kittens, as those are a lot of work. Adult cats in shelters hardly ever get adopted. We could give 2 adults a second chance. Maybe pick 2 who were surrendered together or who have become friends in the shelter.
Vanessa nodded. Getting them settled in should be quick and easy then. We could pick them up on a Friday, spend the weekend with them, and be back to work on Monday.
Exactly.
Then it's a plan. We'll do it as soon as we get back. She was quiet for a few moments before chuckling under her breath.
Care to let me in on the joke?
I'm just thinking about how we met. I never would have guessed that the way to my heart would be through a violent clash of ideals, but perhaps I should have. You took me by storm, and I've never been the same since.
Melanie leaned in to kiss her wife softly on the lips. I could say the same thing about you. You've changed me forever, and I never want to go back.
You won't ever have to.
Melanie knew that to be true. Vanessa was her dream come true, a dream come to life. Every day with her was a gift, and Melanie intended to treasure each one as such. Loving Vanessa was the best thing she'd ever done. And as she looked deep into her wife's eyes, she knew that Vanessa felt exactly the same about her. This concludes Rival to the CEO by Emily Hayes, narrated by Abby Craden. Copyright 2023 by Emily Hayes. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Emily Hayes and was produced in the year 2024 by Tantor Media Incorporated, a division of Recorded Books which holds the copyright thereto. Please visit Tantor.com for more information on our growing library of unabridged audiobooks.